A very good morning and welcome to the program. My name is GMK. This is Good Morning Kenya. Glad you are with us this morning. It is the 15th day of April 2020, exactly a month since schools were closed after the presidential directive in an effort to try and curb the spread of COVID-19 and protect our children before the pandemic got to where it is today. And so today on my end of things, we're going to be having a discussion in regards to the education sector, how things have been so far this past month. We have been seeing schools opting to go the e-learning way of things to just try and keep up with the curriculum, given the academic curriculum was set to end on the 10th of April, at least for term one. But, you know, with a month away from school, what has been done to just try and make sure that our students do not fall back when it comes to the curriculum? That is a discussion that we'll be having in not too long, so you can always feel free to be part of that conversation. I will be letting you know how you can get in touch with us in not too long. Welcome once again.
Well, hello there. My name is Fiona Shuru, and I'll be bringing you the Good Morning Kenya news briefs. This morning, we do have an update of how the government is screening medical practitioners at Kenyatta National Hospital. We'll also have a look at how the court cases are going. Apparently, there's a court case of a clergy who is denying charges of knowingly spreading the coronavirus. We'll also have a look at the world of business. Yesterday, fuel prices dropped. We'll be having a look at what exactly dropped and by how much. I also had a chance to go to Kiambu Market yesterday, finding out how the traders and other common wananchis are handling COVID-19 at the market. We'll be having also a look at the sports arena, what exactly is happening in the sports arena today morning. So do stay tuned for the Good Morning Kenya news briefs.
Even as you talk about the discussions on matters to do with coronavirus, and as you continue with those discussions, this morning we speak to an economist, Geoffrey Injeni. He will be helping us understand the economic impact of this disease here in Kenya, as well as on the entire globe, as well as also just understand some of the measures that the government can adopt to help protect the most vulnerable persons. Remember, a significant number of people are now losing their jobs. Some have to part with unpaid, some have to part with unpaid salaries. So how can these persons just continue with their day-to-day lives? What kind of measures can the government adopt to help protect these persons, seeing that they were at least productive in terms of helping the economy grow? But as of now, that is not happening. And also just help us to understand some of the challenges that banks and SACCOs are now facing due to delayed payments of money. This is what he will be helping us understand this morning. My name is Dorina Range. Good morning.
Of course, we'll be having a quick look at the papers this morning, and one of the main stories today is about the grace period for wearing masks having come to an end. So as of today, it is going to be compulsory for you to put on a mask if you're going to be in any public space, a matatu or a supermarket. Failure to do so, the police have been given the go-ahead, the green light to arrest you. And once you are arrested, you could either have to pay a fine of up to 20,000 or face prison time. I will be letting you know more of that story in not too long from in the headlines today. But in the meantime, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. At KBC Channel 1 is our official station handle. Our individual handles are at Dorina Range, at Fiona Shuru, at Ramaguko, and at Jane Wamboy across all social media platforms. And of course, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and you can always get us also on our website at www.kbc.co.ke/KBC-live. But in the meantime, let's get up to date on matters concerning the nation.
Yes, and on matters concerning the nation, let's get straight into it. The government says it will, in the next few days, embark on mass testing exercise in efforts to contain COVID-19 as the country's total tally topped 216 on Tuesday after 8 more people tested positive for the virus. Health Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Masi Mwangangi said the move follows the risk around profiled clusters. At least 21 counties have reported this so far. Now let's have a look as Purity Museo reports.
The government says despite the measures it has put in place, the country is still witnessing a phenomenon where the COVID-19 virus is increasingly moving to counties. 8 people tested positive for the coronavirus out of 694 samples analyzed within 24 hours, leading to Tuesday, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 216.
In the last 24 hours, fellow Kenyans, we have tested 694 samples. Out of these samples, 8 have tested positive for coronavirus disease, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 216. 5 are Kenyans, and the other 3 are of different nationalities, foreign nationalities.
Health Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Mercy Mwangangi said 6 cases emanated from mandatory quarantine centers, while 2 were picked by the ministry's surveillance teams.
6 have a history of travel from Dubai, the UK, Pakistan, Zambia, and Comoros. The spread of the new cases with regards to their counties of residence is as follows: Nairobi, 6, Siaya, 1, Nakuru, 1.
It is in this regard that the government will embark on a mass testing exercise, especially in risk profile areas.
In Nairobi, for instance, we shall prioritize the quarantine centers, hotels, isolation facilities, and hospitals. These form our top 4 priority in Nairobi.
According to the CAS, some 12,000 testing kits will be deployed to target areas in the next few days.
In Mombasa, we are deploying 1,000 testing kits to Kenya Ports Authority, KPA. And this is based on the risk of transmission that has been identified from our monitoring teams.
A total of 2,331 contacts have been monitored, out of which 1,729 have been discharged. 602 others were being monitored. 21 counties have so far recorded cases. Nairobi has 101, Mombasa 34, Kilifi 10, Kiambu 7, Mandera 6, Machakos 6, Nakuru 5, Kisii 1, Kitui 2, Laikipia 2, Kajiado 2, Murang'a 2, Homa Bay 1, Kakamega 2, Nyamira 1, Nyandarua 2, Nyeri 1, Siaya 2, Uasin Gishu 2, Vihiga and Kwale 1 case each. As the country struggles to flatten the curve regarding spread of COVID-19 across the country, the elephant in the room is now the emergence of cases of gender-based violence. The country has now reported 3 times the number of cases than before.
And we also want to remind everyone that the law has not been suspended and that it will catch up with those who meet violence on others during this period.
Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
5 Kenyans have succumbed to the deadly COVID-19 disease in the United States, with the Kenyan embassy in the country awaiting postmortem of an official who passed on last week to ascertain the cause of the death. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Macharia Kamau says 2 other Kenyans in Germany and Sweden are still in the ICU due to COVID-19 complications. This as the government says it is stepping up its efforts to track Kenyans affected by the coronavirus globally.
As the number of coronavirus cases and fatalities continue to soar locally, the government says the picture outside the country is fairer, according to reports from various embassies across the world. So far, 5 Kenyans living abroad have succumbed to the virus, with all deaths registered in the United States.
On record, about 5 Kenyans who have succumbed not necessarily to COVID-19, but who have died in the last month and who have underlying causes that could have made them susceptible to COVID-19 conditions.
According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 5 had underlying conditions and might not have died necessarily of the dreaded COVID-19.
Ms. Ruth Anyango Ogonda passed away in Los Angeles on Friday, the 10th of April. She was taken suddenly ill. She had some underlying conditions, high blood pressure, difficulty in breathing, and she was rushed to hospital, but sadly she passed on. We are waiting for the autopsy to be able to determine the cause of death.
The ministry has, however, said no Kenyan deaths have so far been reported in any other countries, including hotspot countries of China, Italy, and Spain.
The best news I can give you is that we have very few Kenyans who are infected. And those few who have been have had underlying causes. Yani walikuwa na ugonjwa mwingine ambao ulikuwa unawasumbua. Sasa COVID ilipowashika, ilikuwa vigumu sana kuwatibu.
Despite calls from a section of leaders for immediate evacuation of Kenyans living in China due to recent hostilities melted on them by locals, Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Macharia Kamau says the government is weighing every available option.
Of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs urgently to provide an aircraft that can airlift Kenyans willing to go home who are in China. It is their right.
It's unfortunate. But I think all the assurances that we have now received from the Chinese government tell us that this is not something they want to continue to tolerate, and that they are working very closely with the regional, it's like county governments. They're working very closely with the regional governments to ensure that they adhere properly to the regulations that are in place.
China, through its ambassador to Kenya, Wu Peng, has however said that the situation has been arrested and addressed and that measures have been taken to protect Kenyans living in China. Benson Rioba reporting for Channel 1 News.
The government has begun mass testing medical practitioners and staff working in health facilities for the novel coronavirus. The exercise was launched at Kenyatta National Hospital, where at least 400 medical officers were screened. According to Health Principal Secretary Susan Mochache, screening will first be conducted in all medical facilities with special focus on the first-line responders of COVID-19 pandemic.
Tuesday at the Kenyatta National Hospital, medical officers from different departments queue, awaiting their turn to be tested for the novel coronavirus. The medics' names are first registered for separation samples. Their body temperature is measured before samples are taken from the nose and mouth. Health Principal Secretary Susan Mochache, who launched the mass testing, noted the government says priority will be given to staff in the health sector.
Tunajua kwamba wakati mwingine yaweza kuwa kwa bahati mbaya mtu aweze kupata virusi hivyo. Kwa hivyo sasa hii program imeanza, wafanyakazi wote katika hospitali hii, wale ambao wako katika Mbagathi Hospital, wale ambao wako katika Kenyatta University Hospital na mahospitali zetu za county wameanza kupimwa. Na hii imewezekana kwa sababu tumeweza kupata vifaa ambavyo vimerahisisha kazi ya kuchukua sampuli kutoka kwa watu.
The Ministry of Health hopes to test 500 medical officers daily before the screening is scaled up to the general public. However, one of the challenges noted with novel coronavirus testing is the long duration it takes for results to be known. This has seen the government procure machines that will give results after 3 hours of testing.
Kenyatta hospitali peke yake ina uwezo wa kutoa sampuli 3,000. Na tukiweka pamoja na zile mashini zote ambazo tuko nazo katika nchi hii, tunaweza kuangalia sampuli zaidi ya 3,000 ambazo zinaweza kutufikia kutoka maeneo tofauti.
Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
Kenya is yet to meet the requisite standards of manufacturing the personal protective gear to fight coronavirus. The Ministry of Health is yet to approve the quality of equipment to be manufactured locally after an initial assessment at one of the designated textile factories failed the set standards. According to medical practitioners who toured the export processing zone in Athi River, the prototype produced was not waterproof and therefore needed modification.
With preparations for mass production of personal protective equipment for health workers currently on the forefront of fighting the coronavirus pandemic underway, Kenya is readying itself to produce medical protective equipment. But the country is still running behind in meeting the required standards, and the prototype on gears such as coats, coveralls, scrubs and aprons are not of approved quality.
We are happy with what they have done, but the only gap is this slight penetration of water. And that is not a big deal. That is something that can be done within a very short time.
The surgical and community masks manufactured here have been approved as the samples for the other gears await modification before approval for mass production. Medical practitioners say the demand for the personal protective equipment is rising by the day, as one PPE is required per patient being attended to at the hospital.
Our main mission is to ensure that our people are safe, our clinicians, our health workers are safe. That what we can do is to expedite the process so that we finish this process as early as possible.
The government says that the community masks will be available only to vulnerable communities.
But targeting informal settlements, because again we are cognizant of socioeconomic realities in this country. And therefore the government is seized of the matter, is very much aware of it, and as soon as they are ready, they will be distributed, but not to each and every one of us. Let that be clear to everyone.
This comes as the government reveals that one full kit of PPE for a health worker costs about 20,000.
Because the suit itself now is about 15,000. Now when you add the goggles, which are going for about 3,000, then you add the gloves, which are about 150, and you add the shoes, so you're looking at a disease that is so expensive to manage.
But with the demand for community masks also rising, the hygiene of the masks on the streets is said to be worrying, with Kenyans being warned against fitting the mask before buying, as it poses a risk of spreading infection.
All of us are really out there making masks even in our own homes, and I think this has to come out. It has not been addressed fully, but we need to do this. But hiding masks with your dirty hands, we've seen even some at the supermarkets where somebody comes and tries and finds it's too small and puts it back in the lot.
Those that live by each day. And we must be, as a government, be conscious of that. And therefore, we will not go to the streets to look at which masks are being, vended by who. But we are asking our people through you that everybody must be conscious of the type of masks that they are actually, buying.
Already 3 textile industries located in Athi River, Kitui and Nakuru have been identified for mass production of the PPEs. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
Moving on into the corridors of justice, Catholic priest Richard Odwor will spend 2 more days in custody after denying charges of knowingly spreading the coronavirus. The prosecution had requested the court to remand the clergy for knowingly traversing the country instead of subjecting himself to self-isolation as had directed by the government for those who were jetting into in March.
Rome-based priest Father Richard Odwor, who has recovered from the coronavirus and who was supposed to have self-quarantined for 14 days when he arrived in Kenya on March the 10th, will be detained for 2 more days to allow police conclude investigations. The priest had traveled to Ugunja in Siaya on March the 14th, allegedly attended a funeral and a wedding before falling ill. He was then quarantined at Mbagathi Hospital, where he tested positive for the coronavirus and was therefore put
We apologize for that rude interruption, but let's move on to other news. 6 people, including the Kenya Police reservists who were killed by alleged Al-Shabaab militia at Korof Harar in Wajir County, have been buried, with locals seeking answers from the government. Residents in the area claim security officers are yet to be dispatched to track the attackers 24 hours after they struck firing at will. Area leaders led by Wajir Governor Mohammed Abdi have condemned the killings, vowing to soldier on in fighting the militia.
Dozens in Wajir ignored the social gathering directive by the government to attend the burial of 6 men killed by Al-Shabaab militia at Korof Harar area last night. The 6, including a Kenya police reservist and 3 others who are nursing injuries at Korof Harar sub-county, are said to have been ambushed by militia on Monday. The killings eliciting criticism from area leaders who are accusing security officers of abandoning locals at the time of need.
Watu wameuawa, hawakupata support kutoka national government. Ma security forces ambao walikuwa hapa karibu, walikuwa wakisikia risasi, hawajapatia hawa support. Na hiyo ni kusema ya kwamba wameshindwa na kazi.
Wajir Governor Mohammed Abdi lamented that despite the presence of 4 military camps, residents were still suffering in the hands of Al-Shabaab.
We have 3 camps, a KDF camp in Konton. We have another camp in Qarsa of special forces. We have equally another special forces in Kutulo. And this group were housed right in the middle of those 3. And there were no attempts to flush them out. But these young men took the courage to go and smoke them from their area. And that's how they died.
With tension high in the area following the killings, area leaders are vowing to soldier on fighting the militia, calling on residents to remain vigilant and be ready to protect themselves.
Leteni report ya hawa Shabab, sisi ndo tutadili na hawa. Na vijana muwe tayari kabisa. Kutoka sasa hatuwezi kusema ni national government wala nini. Sisi ndio tutakuwa mstari ya mbele kufanya kazi na nyinyi na kupatia nyinyi ile msaada mnataka, na muwe tayari kulinda nchi yenu.
Al-Shabaab have no religion, neither are they based on any religion. These are criminals in our midst, and we must flush them out. The killing of these gallant officers will not hinder us to take them where they belong, and we are going to take them where they belong. And we should not be deterred by those killings. We are there to protect our people, to protect our property, which we have as Kenyan citizens.
Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
Moving into the coastal region, 2 police officers in Magarini, Kilifi County, have been arrested for allegedly threatening to shoot boda operators transporting who had refused to part with bribes. Magarini OCPD Elisha Cherono says the 2 police officers, one from Critical Infrastructure Protection Unit and his colleague from National Police Service, were caught on camera confronting the operators who had refused to abide by their demands.
2 police officers will spend in police cells in Magarini for allegedly threatening to shoot boda operators transporting charcoal for failing to agree to pay bribes. This is after a video went viral on social media showing one of the officers pulling out his pistol and aiming at a group of boda operators as he demands for bribes for freedom.
Na kama ataenda huko arudi tena hapa, tutaakti pia sisi kama wananchi. Hata kumwona arudi tena hapa mara.
According to Magarini OCPD Elisha Cherono, the 2 police officers are from CIPU and National Police Service. In the video, an officer known as Crispus Katana, popularly called Kunguru, who is the driver of the sub-county AP commander, is seen confronting his colleague not to interfere with his work as he was on duty. Cherono says investigation is ongoing before any administrative measures are taken. So far, one of the officers has been interdicted. Deputy President Dr. William Ruto had shared the video and ordered the arrest of the officers. Local leaders including Magarini Member of Parliament Michael King and Member of County Assembly Ranson Kambi condemned the police for constant harassment of bodaboda operators, particularly those transporting charcoal.
Jambo hili la dhulma la polisi katika kituo kile cha Marapa haikuanza leo. Kwa sababu tunakumbuka kwamba mwaka jana kuna kijana ambaye alipigwa risasi, kijana ambaye anaitwa Juma Ashanga. Vile vile alikuwa ni muuzaji wa makaa.
Sasa hawa maofisa ambao wamechukua jukumu ambalo wanasimama kwa barabara na kuchukua rushwa kwa hawa vijana wetu ambao saa hii hawana kazi ya kufanya.
Bajaji hao nao pia kazi ni hiyo hiyo. Hata wakati mwingine mnafukuzwa mbio tu huko barabarani tayari. Hiyo ni kama ni kazi yao. Maana wewe ukionekana tu tayari wao wanapambana nao. Hata mimi tayari najua kupokewa gunia moja.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Timothy Kipnoso.
Parliament resumed its sittings on Tuesday, a month after interrupting its calendar over the novel COVID-19 pandemic. Social distancing, screening, and wearing of face masks were observed within the precincts of Parliament, with only a few dozen members allowed in the main chambers. Among bills prioritized during the amendments to the tax law to bring into effect the stimulus package announced by the President to help cushion Kenyans from the economic impact of coronavirus pandemic, lowering value-added tax from 16 to 14%.
Desperate times called for desperate measures. The usually vibrant and social legislative assembly on Tuesday was scanty and spread out as the novel coronavirus continues to redefine how Kenyans live, work and socialize. To ensure enough social distancing, only a few dozen members were allowed sitting in the main chambers, while others were accommodated in the members' lounge and tents set up at the lawns.
One of your guidelines was anybody above 58 years should not appear in the chambers. And I'm seeing here Honorable Kimunya, I am seeing here Honorable Bokose. These are octogenarians who should be at home, Mr. Speaker. We don't want to lose any member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
I want to bring to the attention of the Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker, even in your guidelines, Mr. Speaker, it was clearly said that may, not must. So you are encouraged, but you are not stopped.
Mr. Speaker, I am seeing so many empty seats.
Yeah.
And members have confirmed, and this is not good. For these members who confirmed should be known, and I think, Mr. Speaker, I'll ask your discretion to allow other members who are somewhere and who really want to participate to take those seats.
The National Assembly approved the establishment of the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund, which will supplement the government's efforts to stem the spread of the coronavirus.
Having been satisfied that the statutory instrument, that is the order, is in compliance with the Constitution, the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, the Value Added Tax, and the Statutory Instruments Act, this committee recommends to this House that the instrument actually be approved.
The MPs also approved an alteration of legislative calendar to meet every Wednesday at 10 a.m. in line with the Ministry of Health directive advising Parliament to sit once a week. Parliament is also expected to consider proposed amendments to the tax law aimed at economically cushioning Kenyans against the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
A meeting between the Senate on COVID-19 and the Ministry of Health top brass officials aborted yesterday afternoon after the Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe failed to show up. The committee, chaired by Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, was held online, resolved to schedule the session pending availability of the Cabinet Secretary, saying he is crucial to the legislative process to approve financial support for combating the coronavirus pandemic.
The agenda is simple. It's meeting with the Cabinet Secretary for Health and the chairperson of the National Emergency Response Committee.
The 2 p.m. online meeting convened by the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19, chaired by Johnson Sakaja, aimed at hearing firsthand the state of the novel coronavirus pandemic in the country. This information was expected to be conveyed by Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, but he did not turn up. He was instead represented by a team from the ministry, a situation the 7-member ad hoc committee was not comfortable with.
Bwana CS, you can represent the CS in capacity as administratively committee. Some of the questions we have, especially for today, are centered around your ministry. But when we looked at this issue, we broke it into 5 thematic areas, which include economic and finance issues, food and water, social justice, public order, and other auxiliary issues that are supporting services that would need the answer from the response committee. So do you have written responses right now that have been signed by the CS?
We have the document completed. The only thing that is not there is the signature of the CS.
Documents are signed for ownership.
The Sakaja-led team then resolved to postpone the meeting until the Cabinet Secretary is available. This as the committee is expected to table a Pandemic Response and Management Bill 2020 in the Senate. The bill is seeking the establishment of county COVID-19 pandemic response committees that will implement strategies and measures as directed by the National Committee. Additionally, the county committees will promote civic education and public awareness on the pandemic. The bill also proposes establishment of a pandemic response fund to mobilize resources towards containing the spread and impact of the disease. The proposed legislation also suggests socio-economic interventions, including introduction of tax measures to cushion affected persons for the duration of the pandemic. If the bill is passed in Senate and ascended to by the President, then it will be a reprieve to millions of Kenyans on safety and provision of services. The funds injected to county governments will boost stability on the fight against COVID-19. Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1 in the county of Nairobi.
Moving on swiftly to business news, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has significantly reduced the pump price for super petrol and kerosene, signaling lower cost of living over the next 1 month. A litre of super petrol has reduced by 18 shillings, while kerosene is down 18 shillings and 18 cents. Diesel, which reduces by a lower margin of 4 shillings and 9 cents, will now be more expensive than super petrol. As Betty Kiptum narrates, pump prices will have reduced by a bigger margin, where it were it not for depreciated shilling that lost 2.75% to the dollar.
Crude oil prices have nearly halved from a high of $69.25 per barrel to $35.58 per barrel in March. On the other hand, the shilling has been weakening against the dollar from a low of 100.97 in January, 101.27 in February to 104.05 in March. This has eaten into the reductions in pump prices that Kenyans would have enjoyed. Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has reduced the pump price of a litre of super petrol by 18 shillings, while kerosene is down 18 shillings and 18 cents. However, a litre of diesel has been reduced by a lower margin of 4 shillings and 9 cents. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority attributes the latest pump price reductions to lower landed costs of the petroleum products. The pump price reductions would have been by a wider margin were it not for the shilling that weakened 2.75% to the dollar, hitting 104.05 to the greenback. Fuel will be cheapest in Mombasa, where a litre of super petrol will retail at 90 shillings 40 cents, diesel at 95 shillings 9 cents, while kerosene is 74 shillings 82 cents. In Nairobi, a litre of super petrol will retail at 92 shillings 87 cents, diesel at 97 shillings 56 cents, while kerosene is 77 shillings 28 cents. Fuel will be most expensive in Mandera, where a litre of super petrol goes for 105 shillings 91 cents, diesel costs 110 shillings 60 cents, and kerosene is at 90 shillings 32 cents. Betty Kiptum, Channel 1 Business.
We have now come to the end of Good Morning Kenya News Briefs. Now we'll have a look at what is happening on the newspaper review in the headlines. Time for In the Headlines segment, and on the front page of the People's Daily, Corona bill to stop pay cuts, waive rents. Okay, this is on the front page of the People's Daily. It continues to say that Senate is proposing radical measures that will see vulnerable Kenyans who have been hit by COVID-19 pandemic exempted from paying for utilities, and employers stopped from effecting pay cuts on workers. From page 4 all through page 14 is where this story has been fleshed out. 8 more cases confirmed as of yesterday, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 216, 14 recovered, and 9 deaths so far. These are the numbers as of now. Also on the sidebar, counties have no capacity to handle pandemic, says governors. Again, on a good note, relief for kerosene users as fuel prices drop by 18 shillings. Now, on this story that was on the front page of this paper, Sakaja bill proposes exemption from paying rent, salary cuts. So it continues to say that the Senate is now proposing radical measures that will see Kenyans who have been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic exempted from paying rent and utility charges, as well as servicing loans. So this proposal seeks to cushion those in employment from salary cuts and businessmen from paying for trading licenses. This is some of the things that are just being proposed by the Nairobi senator. Remember that a good number of people right now are losing jobs. Some have to, just go home till further notice, not even knowing what will happen to them. Some have to part away with half salaries. So this is just some of the measures some of the things that they're trying to propose, at least to protect those vulnerable persons who cannot even put basic food on the table because of how hard this pandemic has hit them. But whether this proposal will see the light of day, we are yet to see that. Also, relief for poor as cooking fuel cost drops by 18 shillings. So kerosene users, majority of them, the urban poor, were yesterday handed a huge relief to enable them cope with the coronavirus economic crisis. And so, in the new fuel prices announced yesterday, the prices of kerosene dropped by 18 shillings. Of course, also the prices of petrol and diesel dropped, and on that note, the prices for the next 30 days, actually, following this massive dip in cost of petrol and diesel, which also will go down by 18 shillings and 4 shillings, respectively, per litre. Remember that also public service vehicle operators, motorists were also complaining of this because they were asked to reduce on the number of passengers they were carrying on these vehicles. And so a good number of them were complaining of the fuel prices, since they could not even manage to put fuel as they were. So at least with this reduction, it is good for them. At least they can now survive in this tough time. So that is prices of fuel, petrol, and diesel, which have gone down by those numbers I just mentioned. And our focus turns to counties amid virus spread. In what could portend tougher times ahead in the fight against coronavirus. So this was said yesterday by Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, the Health Chief Administrative Secretary. He said that the coronavirus has been reported in at least 21 counties, with Nairobi having the highest cases of infection at 101 cases, followed by Mombasa at 34. Remember, a couple of weeks back, we were only talking about 4 major counties which are being regarded as hotspots where this virus had been recorded mostly. And of course, this included Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, and Kwale counties. But as of now, the number of recorded cases in other counties are even rising. Counties such as Kitui, Kajiado, Laikipia, also reporting these cases of the virus. And so that's just what the CAS had to say yesterday. Also, let me just mention one of the things that she also said, and I quote, "Despite the measures we have put in place, we have witnessed a phenomenon where the virus is increasingly moving to the counties." So that means it's no longer the 4 specific counties which are regarded as hotspots that are continuously reporting high number of cases, but it has also moved to other counties. And even as we speak of other counties where the virus has moved, it is now
coming to our attention that the counties can no longer handle this pandemic in as much as, yes, it is spreading to these counties. So this is what the COG had to say, Council of Governors Chair. Counties unprepared for coronavirus. The county governments admitted yesterday they are neither ready nor prepared to tackle the coronavirus pandemic, with more cases being reported in counties now. So more cases are now being reported in counties. And so the damning revelation was laid out in a submission to the Senate yesterday by the Council of Governors led by Wycliffe Oparanya. So he mentioned that the counties are unable to deal with this pandemic in as much as, yes, they're spreading to the counties. Remember also, there has been issues of unpaid dues to the health workers. Yesterday, we were looking at Vihiga County, where nurses were planning to go on strike because of unpaid salaries. A couple of weeks ago, we were looking at a case in Meru County. A number of health workers have been complaining of lack of enough protective equipment. So this just goes to show you that actually counties are finding it difficult to deal with this pandemic, even as it continues to spread to the counties. But of course, we'll continue to sample for you what more is on the People's Daily. But before we get to continue with that, Jane.
All right, still keeping up within the headlines, we now go to the Daily Nation. And as I had mentioned as we were starting the program, the main story today is in regards to the new directive, or rather not so new, but rather the expiration of the grace period that was given by Inspector General of the Police, that is Hilary Mutyambai, in regards to complying to the rule about putting on face masks. So here on the front page, it talks about how wear a mask or risk arrest. Now, the grace period is up, and from today, you will be flouting the law if you are found in a public place, that is either a matatu, a supermarket, or just along the streets without a face mask. The police have been given the nod to hold you, and once you are held, there are consequences that are soon to follow. And let's just go to that story has been highlighted further here. Mutyambai, we will arrest you for not wearing a face mask in public. Of course, this comes after the grace period has expired as of yesterday, and those who are going to be taken into custody could face a fine of up to 20,000 Kenya shillings or go to prison for a term that not exceeding 6 months, or you actually get to face both consequences. You pay the fine and you go to jail for a 6-month period. And this came as he did give this warning yesterday, saying that so many Kenyans are not complying to this directive of putting on face masks when you are in places that are considered public, and they are putting all the other Kenyans at risk. And of course, this is not just in line with the directives that are being given by the Ministry of Health, but also in line with the World Health Organization directives when it comes to helping flatten the curve of infection in regards to COVID-19.
All right, moving on to the standard newspaper this morning, we have on the front page highlighted, it is not all about COVID-19 this morning, but it is about matters to do with politics. On the front page of the standard newspaper, we have the splash, Ruto allies face axe, sibling rivalry. This is between National Assembly and Parliament, and Senate, rather, the National Assembly and the Senate. After neutering the deputy president, Uhuru's allies now go for Ruto's henchmen in Parliament, accusing them of sabotaging the president's agenda. Duale and Murkomen dismiss plot to sack them as empty threat. We have comments given by different leaders in Parliament, both in the National Assembly and in the Senate, including comments by Jubilee Vice Chairman David Murathe and the National Assembly Majority Leader Eden Duale, Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen, and House leaders who are feeling the threat, who are also highlighted below. So that story continues inside the Standard, and just to give us a glimpse of that, we have DP's men vow to stay put in Jubilee, and also highlighted in the headline, fresh plot to sack Ruto allies from top posts in Parliament. President's allies accuse Duale and Murkomen of sabotaging Uhuru's agenda. After neutering Deputy President Uhuru's allies now go for Ruto's henchmen. And we have details of other community chairs who are also targeted. And just the first paragraph of this story on DP's men who vow to stay put in Jubilee. Jubilee MPs allied to Deputy President William Ruto have said they will remain in the ruling party despite attempts to sideline him. And this is comments also include comments given by Kimilili lawmaker, Member of Parliament Didymus Baraza, and Kapsaret counterpart, that is Member of Parliament Oscar Sudi. That is the fight against what is happening in Parliament between allies of different leaders, including those in Jubilee and also in Parliament. That is inside the Standard newspaper on what is happening in Parliament. But still, we have on inside the Standard MPs and also Uhuru COVID-19 war chest. Parliament receives supplementary budget. Ministries lose huge chunks of development budgets as state mobilizes cash to fight epidemic. MPs endorse Uhuru COVID-19 war chest. That is on issues to do with COVID-19, Parliament, and Jubilee Party wars.
Well, I'll be having a look at what is happening on the Star. And I'm going to lift it up a bit to get a glimpse of the front page. Well, as they have been doing the whole of this week, they have an illustration of how citizens, wananchis, we can become more safer amid COVID-19 preparedness. There's an illustration on how you should wear your masks and the mistakes that one makes. It's a good illustration. You should have a look at what exactly they're saying in terms of what it means to wear a mask. On the headline, it says, a bill, senators want rent loans frozen due to COVID-19. The bill wants tenants and landlords to negotiate rent payments. That is the story we'll be having a look. And as I open the page, senators want rent loans frozen in pandemic times. On the story, there is a picture of Senator Johnson Sakaja in Parliament. Yes, and one of the lines on the story says, the bill further states that where citizens are not able to service their loans and mortgages, the individual borrower shall notify and enter into an agreement with the lending institution on how to make the payments after the pandemic. Moving on, there's still a case on GBV cases rise amid virus fight. Case of sexual and gender-based violence has gone up by 3 times amid the war on the coronavirus. The government has said this. Moving on.
All right, let's go to the Daily Nation. And still in regards to keeping up with the directives that have been put in place to help us flatten the curve of infection, here on the Daily Nation, we have words from the government spokesman, that is Mr. Oguna. Yesterday, he was addressing an outcry, public outcry in regards to the shortage of face masks that has been hitting not just Kenya, but also so many countries across the world. But yesterday, he did say that, the government will not supply free personal protective equipment, that is the PPEs, to all Kenyans, even as it raised the red flag over the quality of PPEs in the market. He did say, however, that those who are going to be receiving free face masks are people who are in informal settlements, classified as vulnerable and hard hit by the effects of COVID-19. He did, however, caution, they're not going to stop hawkers from selling face masks, but warned Kenyans to be wary of what they are buying, because there's some hawkers who are saying, people are trying out the face masks and touching them and putting some back before buying. So as you go about trying to purchase your face mask, you don't go about trying them out. No, don't try them out. Just purchase. One size is supposed to fit all. So don't try out a face mask, put it back, and then try on another before you decide you're going to purchase. Now, still in regards to COVID-19 here, a story that I think has been mentioned on both the Star and the People's Daily, as well as the Standard newspaper. This is in regards to the hotspot areas, or rather counties that were identified as hotspots. And so far, 21 counties have recorded cases of coronavirus. Nairobi is leading among them. And yesterday, the CAS was speaking. She did mention, their displeasure with the manner in which 32 people out of 66 disappeared from quarantine facilities. 32 people disappeared from a quarantine facility under unclear circumstances. And this just goes, against all we are trying to do as a people. Why would you run away from a quarantine facility? And yet all these facilities are being put up to just make sure that we are limiting the spread of COVID-19, and they are said to have disappeared under unclear circumstances under the watch of police officers. Of course, they're looking into that case to see what happened and what more can be done to make sure that nothing like this happens again.
On the back to the front page of the Standard newspaper, we have highlights from the Ministry of Health. On the front page, you have a state to deploy 12,000 kits for mass testing. Nairobi, Mombasa, Siaya, and Mandera have been identified for phase 1 of the exercise, as country records 8 more cases, taking the tally of those infected to 216. That story continues inside the Standard. State to deploy 12,000 kits for mass testing. Well, in other stories, still, we have one on Senator Johnson Sakaja. He has been featured in almost all the dailies this morning. We have highlighted bill guards tenants, job losers against pandemic effects. Landlord to agree with tenants how rent will be settled after pandemic. Well, in this bill, remember, we have a bill that is given by Senate Committee on COVID-19. Senator Johnson Sakaja is the chairman. And the bill provides that tenants who may not be able to meet their contractual obligations shall give a notice in writing to their landlord or contracting party that they are not able to pay rent because of their pandemic. Proposed bill prohibits employer from forcing employee to take salary cut. Bill guards tenants, job losers against pandemic effects. That is inside what is happening from the Senate Committee on COVID-19. Still on other issues to do with coronavirus, have you ever wondered what happens after someone dies of COVID-19? What are the rules for burying COVID-19 victims? Well, we have a story on that. The Ministry of Health protocols, rules for burying COVID-19 victims. From the regulations, it is clear the government bungled the interment of James Onyango. That is what happened to the man in Siaya. Burial of patients who die of coronavirus should be conducted by the family members under the supervision of health officials. We have this story on how even the postmortem should be conducted. The postmortem should be carried out using minimal invasive procedures, with the body examined by while still inside the body bag. There is a step-by-step movement of how bodies or how we buried the dead on this story on COVID-19. Still, on matters to do with security, we have highlighted in the Standard newspaper, thugs take advantage of curfew to break into shops and houses. Well, how secure are we when it comes to this time that we have the curfew? Inside matters to do with security, thugs take advantage of curfew to break into shops and houses. County officials pledge to increase police patrols. Residents raise concern over increased crime, claim the police are no longer responding to distress calls. And we have pictured in residents who peeped through a huge hole that was dug by robbers who broke into a shop dealing with liquor-filled petroleum gas at Molo's Treasure Estate last week. Thugs who take advantage of curfew. Get read about that. It's that story on matters to do with security.
Well, on the Star, we have a small excerpt of a story saying cabs to arrest hawkers selling cloth masks. This is still on to do with COVID-19. The title of the column says, a false sense of protection. Cabs to arrest hawkers selling cloth masks. That is on the Star. To do with politics, there is a spread saying Ruto relies on fake minutes to block Jubilee Party changes. Down there is a quote or a topic, a conversation by David Murathe saying, the minutes touched the raw nerves of his obsession, that is Ruto, with the 2022 succession. We are now on a ceasefire and people should stop 2022 politics as it is an unnecessary diversion. That is David Morathe. Ruto says Ruto's men claim the minutes were falsified and will be the smoking gun for what the DP himself has termed illegal and fraudulent. Still on the Star, let's see, there's a story on Kisumu woman charged after torching a house of a funeral. You could have a look at what exactly that story is saying. As I also highlighted on the Good Morning Kenya news briefs, there is a story of the Siaya priest who spread virus will spend 2 more days in custody. Yeah, the Siaya priest charged to have knowingly spread COVID-19 when he jetted back from Italy last month has been detained for 2 more days. And that is what is happening over on the Star.
Now, moving on to the county news pull-out segment on the Daily Nation, or rather in the Daily Nation. The front page there, Nairobi County. Sonko foot dragging trumped by law in a row of 1 billion kitty. Now, these are the funds that were set aside to supplement the supplementary appropriation bill of 2020 that was supposed to come from the disaster and emergency fund that was set to be used here in Nairobi County in the fight against COVID-19. Given that Nairobi County is considered the epicenter here in Kenya, and this comes even as the governor Mike Sonko has the 14 days which he had to assent this bill lapsed today. So with or without his signature, the new Nairobi Metropolitan Service Director General, Mr. Badi, will have control over this money as of tomorrow, with or without the signature of the governor. This will automatically come into play given the expiry of the 14 days that he had to assent this bill. And of course, there's been said to be a lot of push and pull between the governor and the new administrator, that is Mr. Badi, in regards to the functions and responsibilities of who in the county. But it is said that when Governor Sonko was asked why he had delayed to sign this bill, he said that he had some reservations in regards to how this money is going to be spent. And a huge chunk of this money is said to, a chunk of this money, not so huge, is going to go to the purchase of hand sanitizers, masks, and other related items in the fight against COVID-19. And the rest will go into emergency fund for general public health interventions related to the pandemic. More of that there on the county news pull-out segment of the Daily Nation.
Now getting into the counties on the Standard newspaper, we have highlights of what's happening in different counties. And I would like to start with the Kirinyaga County. And we have highlighted in the Standard, police probe arson at home of MCA in Waiguru, Oysterbay. Police are probing an arson attack at the home of a member of Kirinyaga County Assembly behind the impeachment motion against Governor Anne Waiguru. And that story continues inside what's going on in Kirinyaga County. Get to read about that story on how, arson someone burnt the house of one member of county assembly. Moving on to Busia County. In Busia, MCAs get bail for holding illegal meeting. 14 people, including a ward representative, arrested on Sunday for holding an illegal gathering have been released on police cash bail. In Nakuru County, border riders want tax relief. Border operators want the county to waive the monthly levy of 400 shillings for the next 3 months to enable them remain in business. In Kisii County, matatus to get finer passenger details. The county police commander, Stephen Kehara, has ordered all matatu circles operating in the area to keep record of passengers boarding their vehicles in a bid to ease track of coronavirus spread. That is in the county of Kisii. Moving on to one more county, and this is specifically taking us to Murang'a County. And in Murang'a, in what's going on in the counties, we have a stadium post-virus weak link. Demands are up for closure of Wariama Stadium in Tigania East and it is in quote, they are converting into a liquor and a den of what, and is being a coronavirus spread weak link. That is Stadium post-virus weak link, that is the demand to close Mwariama Stadium, that is in Tigania, in Muranga County. That is in the counties, what's happening in the counties. But there is a pullout in the Standard, that is the hustle pullout. We have on what is going on in our homes, my pets, my money makers, how I went from 16,000 shilling salary to big bucks, that is in terms of money, starting a business, making money and getting connected, on how you can use your pets to make money for you at home. Well, how can you do it? Well, this is a story of an entrepreneur who says how I tripled my business in a year, learning from entrepreneurs' business journeys, how someone tripled their business in a year. Get read about that also in the hustle pullout of the Standard newspaper.
Well, on the Star, something that Ram mentioned, MCAs, my heart goes out to MCAs, ward reps demanding security. It's a bit too much. Arsonists attack MCA in Waiguru impeachment bid home torched. You know, at Kirinyaga, MCA, who tabled an impeachment motion against Governor Anne Waiguru, was on Tuesday attacked at his home, partially burnt by arsonists. A lot of these stories are to do with MCA's security issues. Oh my, that has been highlighted on the Star. Just have a copy and just find out the details of this gory story. Still on matters to do with the Star, I'll highlight a story here, tobacco harm reduction. Why not just eliminate? Why not just eliminate as tobacco harms reduction? I was reading on the Economic Times, that is online in the UK, and Paul Mann and one of these big cigarette companies have already come up with some form of technology that they're using in the cigarettes to already prevent the spread of COVID-19 through cigarettes. So you could have a look at the Star and what other pullouts have to say about COVID-19.
All right, let's now move on to world news, and starting with the Daily Nation. Here we go to India. Now, India has been said to have had the biggest lockdown in the world, and India extends the world's biggest lockdown to May. So these were the words of the Prime Minister yesterday as he was speaking, which was supposed to be the day when the previously set lockdown was supposed to come to an end. But yesterday he said that they will extend the lockdown until at least the 3rd of May, and this is just all in an effort to try and still limit the number of infections that have been reported in India. But just looking at this nation with 1.3 billion people, the numbers that have officially been put out when it comes to COVID-19 pandemic is that there have been around 10,000 cases and only 339 deaths that have been recorded, and this is according to official figures. But experts are saying that, you know, India has also not conducted enough tests, and that the true number of infections could be much, much bigger than this. Now, remember, this lockdown was placed for the first time on the 25th of March, was set to end yesterday midnight, but the Prime Minister did come out to say that they are going to extend the lockdown until the 3rd of May, which is also subject to review when that date does arrive. Now, bringing it to Africa, another country that has also extended lockdown in some of its cities is Nigeria. And there, Buhari extends lockdown in 3 cities, that is Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun. He did say that the lockdown in these counties is going to continue for another 2 weeks as they intensify the war on COVID-19. And so far, the cases confirmed have increased, or rather had increased to 343, with 10 fatalities and 91 recoveries. He did, however, commend the people, the Nigerian people, for all the support that they had given the government and the medical fraternity authority when it came to bearing the pains of the lockdown. He did say they are during that 2-week period, the initial 2-week period that these cities were on lockdown, they did manage to achieve a lot. However, they are going to intensify measures, all in an effort to have a more comprehensive public system and identify, test, isolate, and contact trace all confirmed cases in the next 2 weeks that they have extended this lockdown.
And in the world news, inside the Standard newspaper, remember this lockdown is also highlighted in different regions in the world. But starting with on the COVID-19, 111 million children are likely to miss measles shot. 117 million children likely to miss measles shot. Remember, the WHO said in December that measles had infected nearly 10 million people in 2018 and killed over 140,000, mostly children. It is described as an outrage. COVID-19, 117 million children likely to miss measles shots. Immunization drive in 24 countries have already been delayed following the outbreak of coronavirus and the related restrictions. The respiratory disease has killed over 113,000 people and left many countries in virtual lockdown. That is in the world news. Heading over to Gonzu. 111 Africans test positive of virus in Gonzu. Some 111 Africans in Gonzu, China, tested positive for COVID-19 by Monday. Local authorities said among them 19 were imported confirmed cases. That is in Gonzu. Once 11 Africans test positive for coronavirus. In New Delhi, in India, India extends lockdown as deaths rise. Prime Minister Modi, who is pictured above, yesterday extended the countrywide lockdown till May the 3rd amid the COVID-19 pandemic. That is in Delhi, in India. Moving on to Kampala, here in Uganda. Museveni extends lockdown of a virus. That is highlighted in Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni has extended Uganda's initial 14-day lockdown by an extra 3 weeks until May the 5th. That is, Museveni extends lockdown of a virus. Moving on to the United States. I have total authority on lockdown, says Trump. That is in the U.S. Country's constitution says states' main public order and safety. Country's constitution says states' maintain public order and safety. U.S. President clashes with governor over who has power to decide when to end or ease coronavirus-related restrictions. The war on the virus in the United States. I have total authority on lockdown, says Trump. That is in the United States, in the world news segment of the Standard newspaper.
Well, on the Star, I'll highlight the Star survey for today. Do you like working from home? That's today's question. Yesterday's question, do you think the CIA man should be reburied with dignity? Well, there you have it. 82% say yes, 18% say no. Still on matters to do with COVID, but socially, lonely times to be a new mom as lockdown halts a normal life. There is no one to visit or help after delivery. Pregnant women categorized as being increased risk from COVID-19, told to self-isolate but also attend appointments. That is a pull-out for the Star, talking about how lonely it could be raising a newborn right now with COVID-19, considering you cannot move around or just get more support from family and friends. On the Star, I will quote the historical quote for today: either Africa or death. Yeah, either Africa or death. And that was by Saint Daniel Comboni. He was an Italian missionary born in April 15th, an Aries, right? Still on the Stars, they talk about defining worthy leaders because of COVID-19. I love that. When the worst of the pandemic is gone, COVID-19 will have created new parameters of leadership. Post-pandemic leaders will be those who stood with the people in a time of dire need. Funny enough, they already have a picture of some leaders, Governor Joho, Charity Ngilu, amongst others. You should have a look at what exactly they're saying about that, and that is on the Star. Moving on.
Now, as we bring things to a close on this end of things, let's just have a quick look at business news. And this is a story that has made so many in the transport industry so happy. It was one of the items in all the dailies this morning, as well as the GMK news brief. Major relief as a regulator chops price of petrol by 18 shillings per litre. And on a lighter note, the travel ban spoils the party for some motorists who have faced pain at the pumps for so long. But just to look at the numbers once again, petrol prices from midnight will fall by 18 shillings per litre, while diesel will go down by 4 shillings, making them bringing the cost to 92 shillings and 87 cents per litre and 110 and 87 cents per litre, respectively, for petrol and diesel. Kerosene will also go down by 18 shillings to now cost 77 Kenya shillings. And also looking at the difference that has been noted in some of the counties, it is said that Mombasa County are going to be paying the lowest when it comes to this new prices. Given in most of the counties, and starting with Nairobi, is going to be going, petrol is going to be going for 92 shillings. In Mombasa, petrol is going to be going for 90 shillings and 40 cents per litre, while in Nairobi and many other counties is going to be going for 97 shillings and 87 cents. But there also is one county, that is Mandera, which is going to be paying the highest. When it comes to petrol, petrol is going to be going for 105 shillings and 91 cents per litre, a difference of 15 shillings compared to other counterparts in Mombasa. So more of that story has been highlighted there. You can get to read more of it on the business news segment of the Daily Nation.
In the world of business, inside the Standard newspaper, we have highlighted
all right, before we actually have a look at the Standard once more, let's quickly check in with People's Daily. Deep?
Yeah, we continue with what more has been written on the People's Daily, and this is a story that Jane had mentioned earlier, which was also well written in the Standard newspaper. This is in regards to the face mask. Remember that now they are an essential commodity, even as you're moving around, especially in public places. And experts question quality of face masks in the market. So the Ministry of Health and medical experts have expressed concern over the quality of face masks being used by the public in the fight against the spread of coronavirus, saying that these masks could pose a bigger risk. So the health multi-sectoral team, now comprising of the ministry, nurses and doctors union officials, are saying that most of the hawked face masks are substandard and unhygienic and might pose a health risk. Listen to what the chair KMPDU, Dr. Evan Jenga, said. She said that handling face masks with dirty hands and hawkers near supermarkets, allowing people to try and fit them, and if they do not fit, hand it back, makes the items more contaminated, and this is a recipe for mass spread of this disease. So even as you're trying to contain this disease by wearing a face mask, what is being highlighted there is that trying it out in public, and also the face masks that are being manufactured, you know, they need to undergo all the steps and all the health standards that are being advised by the Ministry of Health, and people should not be trying it out, you know, in the public and returning it to the hawkers. Now, moving to the counties, Muranga establishes 35-bed ICU to treat critical coronavirus patients. Remember, earlier on, we were looking at how counties were saying it is now difficult for them to handle these cases, even as they continue to spread in different counties. And right now, we stand at 21 counties that have already recorded these confirmed cases of this disease. But this is what Muranga County is trying to do, at least to help contain the disease, in terms of establishing at least ICU ICU beds to treat this critical coronavirus patients. So, Murang'a County government is in the process of setting up an intensive care unit as part of preparations to combat coronavirus. So, yesterday, the Governor Mwangi Wairia said the 35-bed unit, which is being set up at Murang'a District Hospital, will be operational in a month's time. This is what he said, and I quote, "With the number of those affected by the virus increasing by the day, it's high time we take drastic measures to deal with the situation before it gets out of control." So at least in as much as it is difficult for counties to handle this disease, as we had seen earlier, some counties are trying the best they can, the best they could to contain this disease. To some business now. Economy could deflate by 1 trillion Kenyan shillings. Analysis one. Remember, this is also a discussion I'll be having in a couple of minutes from now, just to better understand how the economy has been impacted by this disease, especially here in Kenya and even throughout the entire African continent, as well as the globe, and also some of the measures the government can adopt to at least help protect the most vulnerable who have really been hit hard, that cannot even survive in this difficult time. So that is a discussion we'll be having a bit later to understand the economic impact. But the economy will shrink by between 317 billion Kenyan shillings and 1 trillion this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. This is what a report is saying, and this is according to McKinsey report, where the Kenya's gross domestic product, that is the GDP growth, again could decline by between 3 and 10% points depending on how the pandemic is handled. So depending on how this disease is going to be handled by our country, that is how it will determine how our economy will drop down. But as it is, you can clearly see that the economy is clearly dropping because, like I keep mentioning, a number of businesses have really shut down, especially in the hotel, tourism sector, which have really been hit hard by this disease. Now, to some world news, and WHO warns against easing lockdown as virus toll rises. So the number of new cases of COVID-19 is easing in some parts of Europe, including Italy and Spain, but infections are still growing in Britain and Turkey. This is what the World Health Organization said. This was yesterday on Tuesday, and the spokeswoman WHO, Dr. Margaret Harris, said, I quote, "The overall world outbreak, 90% of cases are coming from Europe and the United States, so we are certainly not seeing the peak yet." But even at that, they continue to say that it is, you know, in as much as, yes, countries are trying to, in some countries, especially in Europe, are trying to ensure that their citizens, their lives go back to normalcy by lifting the lockdowns. But this is just what is being highlighted here. How safe is it to lift some of this lockdown, even as you continue fighting with this disease? But that has been highlighted there. This is in the People's Daily. But even as countries, even as you talk about the issue of lockdown in some countries, and just like again it was highlighted also in the other papers of countries that are extending their lockdown periods. Of course, Uganda is again one of them. And Museveni extends shutdown. So the Uganda President Yoweri Museveni on Tuesday extended the country's lockdown for another 21 days up to May 5th. This is what he said. "This is meant to allow us study the situation longer. All previous measures still stand. It is safer to go another 21 days than to stop prematurely." So that is what he said. And of course, this is after he increased that lockdown to, he increased the time to more 21 days. Of course, you also know countries such as Nigeria and India, which have equally done the same. And this is just to help protect their citizens. So this is what countries are doing in Africa as well as beyond to help protect their citizens amidst this coronavirus pandemic. But this is now where we want to bring our In the Headlines segments to a close this morning. Remember, we highlight for you some of the stories that have been making headlines, especially in the Standard, Daily Nation, and the People's Daily, as well as the Star. So that is what we have this morning for you. Again, we get to do this again tomorrow. Just highlight for you some of the stories that have been making headlines on this paper. But let's try and see what is there in the sports segment before we close in the headline segment this morning. Is it still matters to do with coronavirus? Is it anything new? Well, let's look at this. This is the university leg to conclude if COVID-19 is over by July. Remember that a number of sports activities have been halted here in the country and even beyond, at least to just help contain the spread of this disease. And also the people in the sports fraternity have not been spared because, like I mentioned, there's also a number of the activities, especially football, have been halted to, again, contain this disease. But also you can get your copy of either paper that suits you, read more of what has been written and well highlighted in some of these papers. So that has been the People's Daily, the Standard, the Daily Nation, and the Star. We take a break, still plenty more after this break. Stay with us.
Next on.
Siwezi kusaini kwa nini? Kwa sababu sina pesa.
Inawezekanaje kwamba huna fedha?
Nakwambia ukweli.
Bwana Ruan, kwa mujibu wa makubaliano, hiki ndicho unachostahili. Kuanzia sasa na kuendelea, hatuna deni tena.
Tukianza kuhesabu Dubai, Moscow, Prague na Madrid na Cologne. Huu ni wa 6. Pia ni safi sana.
Na hili ndilo ghala letu la kwanza.
Nimegundua kuwa haunihitaji tena. Unaweza kufanya mambo yako mwenyewe bila ulinzi wangu. Umeshakuwa.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
You're not going anywhere. No, I told you. Now let go of me, mommy.
This other girl, what's she like? And how does she outdo Andrea? I know you, Michael.
They killed her. They killed her.
The people that are going after her are dangerous. They already managed to get your daughter.
Not like Rebecca. And she really wanted to kill my son, but you always defended her.
Top on Channel 1.
Keep your heart clean so your days can be better. But we get so amused every time. Now I'm not trying to preach to you. You never put up a fight, no.
Stand with me this time. Stand with me this time. Promise. Now.
This Wednesday on KBC Channel 1.
You need to concentrate.
Yes, Dad, but...
Yes, Coach.
Yes, Coach.
I thought you were serious about your career.
Can't trust them.
I have everything under control.
How can you do something so rash?
Wewe uko hapa kufanya vile ninakuambia. Usiulize maswali, usivuruge mambo.
You're the most miserable man that I know of. Of course. No wonder you get along with Elena. You're the same, Dario. You two are exactly the same.
How long have you been planning this?
Every second of the day. I can make it to the 9th month with a fake belly, but I have to give birth to something.
Uncle brought them in here to bother me. Elena, they're getting everything dirty. Please get them out of here. I'm trying to get them out, but I can't.
Welcome back. We continue with the show, and we want to talk about the economic impact of COVID-19 here in Kenya, as well as the entire globe, and even in the African continent. Remember, it is a time where people are losing businesses. Some have to part away with half salaries. Some have to go on unpaid leave, not knowing even what this means for them. Will they ever come back to work? It is hard economic times for us as a country and even for the entire globe. And with this discussion, Geoffrey Injeni, an economist who also doubles up as a lecturer at Strathmore University, will be helping us understand more about this. Just what exactly is the economic impact of COVID-19 here in Kenya, as well as the entire globe, and also the challenges that banks and SACCOs are facing now due to delayed payments of loans of this money? Because remember, at least some relief has been has been given to Kenyans in terms of payment of loans, but how is this affecting banks? How is this affecting SACCOs? Yes, it is a benefit to us as Kenyans, but what of the banks and SACCOs? That is also what he will be helping us understand, as well as the measures that the government or governments can take to help protect its vulnerable citizens. Like I had mentioned, people are losing jobs, so that just means that people are not as productive as they were in terms of businesses, in terms of conducting their day-to-day activities, in terms of just being in a working environment. That is not happening as it was. So that, of course, automatically just means that economy is going down, because these people that were doing their businesses, whether it's on small scale or large scale, or these people that were in their working environment, at least they are contributing some percentage to help the economy grow, even here in our country. But that is not as it was because, again, of this pandemic. So how can our own government help protect these vulnerable citizens from this pandemic? Remember that also last week the president announced that 40 billion shillings will be released, at least for some of these vulnerable citizens in the country, to benefit from that. But also, again, this raises the question of what kind of strategies has the government laid down to spot and identify these most vulnerable persons? Because remember, sectors such as the tourism sectors are suffering. Hospitality industry is also suffering. So, of course, this renders a significant number of persons in this country as vulnerable. But how exactly will they identify that these are the most vulnerable, so these are the ones eligible for this money, and this other population can, wait a bit? So this is also what, our guests will be helping us understand this morning from an economist point of view. But from your perspective, even just as an individual, in terms of how the economy is going down, do you feel like we can ever get to a point, not ever, but do you feel like we can get to a point where at least we can bring it to some level? Because like I mentioned, people are losing jobs, people are no longer as productive as it were before.
Well, I believe that it all comes into the policies and the stringent measures put in place to curb this economic impact of COVID-19. Because at the end of the day, there has to be and there will be an impact. Based on the studies that have been done, so many people have come up with studies, putting evaluations to different economies and how the coronavirus is affecting them. This COVID-19 is affecting different jurisdictions in different ways, different countries, different nations in different ways. Well, putting into perspective, Doreen, you remember it was just recently that we had a review of the loans. You mentioned that earlier on.
Yeah.
All commercial banks have extended their loans currently, and the repayment period has been extended. This is just to cushion all customers in regards to making sure that their financial difficulties are considered, even as they look forward to paying the loans later on. It has been extended. But this sounds like a good news for some, especially those who have loans. But what about the banks? Is this going to have an effect on the banks? Extension of loans, when you have the cushioning of all these loans coming in to help the financial struggles that most of the common mwananchi are going through, especially during these hard economic times where we have the COVID-19 affecting Kenyans being forced to stay in their houses, self-quarantine, the adverse effects of this. Remember, it was just last year that we had the CBK data that showed that in December last year, 2019, we had the gross non-performing loans for the entire banking sector. It grew by 7.9% to, get this, 333.3 billion shillings. That is how much it grew. But currently, what are the numbers? Is it going to affect the banking sector? Even as we look at the loans, when we have an extension, do we need to look at the overview to see that the extension might, in the end of the day, affect the economy, affecting the commercial banks? Well, these are some of the questions that we need to answer this morning.
Or even as you talk about the banks, because just like you mentioned, at least this is a relief for us as Kenyans, but what about the banks? What about the SACCOs? Remember, especially, members of SACCOs, for those in the hospitality sector, tourism sector, who have just been saving with these SACCOs, have been forced to withdraw their savings because it is difficult. Remember, most of them have lost their jobs, so they have been forced to withdraw their savings from the SACCOs to at least cater for basic needs, such as food, such as shelter. Remember, a rent is still an issue that Kenyans are really grappling with because a good number of them do not even know how they are going to pay for rent. They do not have salaries. They do not have businesses running. That is not happening as it was happening. But even as we talk about the kind of impact this will have on SACCOs and even banks, like I had mentioned, there's some money that has been set aside. At least it was announced that it's supposed to go for the most vulnerable communities and the most vulnerable persons. But a question that, Ram, that also Kenyans are asking is that how will the government identify who are the most vulnerable Kenyans? Who are the most vulnerable persons? Which criteria will the government use to at least identify these persons so that at least they ensure that Kenyans can get food? Because I can tell you the issue of food as of now, because of this pandemic, is such a big issue.
Well, I believe that through putting a standardized way of cushioning the financial struggles of Kenyans, we need to look at it in a broader perspective, so that we don't say that these people are the ones who are affected and these are not. I believe, in my opinion, that all Kenyans are affected. Everybody is affected, whether from the high, middle, or low class. Everyone is affected in one way or the other. It's only that the measures that are implemented based on these different classes are different. And some of these classes have a backup plan. For the low class, for the low income earners, they may not have a backup plan when you tell them not to be able to go to work during the night, or when you tell them not to be able to go to work at specific times of the day. Because remember, businesses are closing at 4. People are asked that by 4, they should allow their workers to go home. Is this going to have an effect? If at all you've been going through the streets of Nairobi, you'll realize that at some point, we normally have some businesses that normally open in the evening. The business owners normally open some of their business, and then when you go through the streets of Nairobi, wamefungua biashara, people can be able to buy and sell goods and items just on the streets. This is going to have an effect on everybody.
All right, so now, thank you, Ram, for that, at least for sharing your 2 cents of what you think about this economic impact and how we can handle it in this difficult time of this disease. But we are now joined by Ivan Kibagendi, Chair Hazina SACCO. He'll just again be helping us understand more about this, not specifically what Hazina SACCO is doing, but the kind of economic impact that this disease is having here in Kenya as well as the entire globe. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the show this morning. And so let us just start with the issue of reduction of percentages, because even earlier on in the morning, we're looking at this at the dailies, and a new UN report on economic impact on COVID-19 in Africa suggests that the virus will reduce the continent's growth from the current 3.2% to 1.8%. This is the kind of percentage that will at least reduce because of this pandemic. Of course, this is the economic growth of the African continent. Just talk to us about the impact of this reduction as far as economic growth is concerned for the whole African continent.
Good morning, Doreen. Yeah, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Ivan Kibagendi, the National Chairman of Hazina SACCO. I'd wish to say that looking at the way my friend has just said about the effect of this coronavirus on the economy, it's not all of
Evans Kibagendi, Chair Hazina SACCO, explaining to us the kind of impact this disease will have on economies. Of course, this is here in Kenya as well as on the entire globe, as also in the African continent. He will also be talking to us about the measures that the government can adopt to help protect Kenyans in this difficult time. Of course, this is a discussion we'll be having with him just to help us understand from a chairperson's point of view. So given the fact that he is a chairperson at the Hazina SACCO, the kind of challenges that SACCOs are facing and the kind of challenges that also banks will be facing in this difficult time. Of course, we'll be debunking more of these issues after this break. Stay with us.
What has been your greatest challenge as a parent during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic situation? As we wait for the pandemic to be over at home, COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to reconnect with our children. Join Nakada during Good Morning Kenya Breakfast Show as we discuss positive parenting. Remember, parenting is all about you. Nakada, for a nation free from alcohol and drug abuse.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
I'm gonna open the bag.
No, don't get close.
She's my daughter, Elena. She's my daughter.
Is this about taking revenge, Dulce? Is that what this is?
No, Dario, it's not like that.
Next on.
Wewe, nikwambia hapa ndani kama nani? Na maana sio wewe alokufuata humu ndani.
Hata dada, mimi ninafanya kumuona sasa hivi alivyoingia.
Zuena, huyu mtu simtaki hapa kwangu.
Rajabu.
Tutaonana siku nyingine.
Sawa, inshallah.
Pesa. Afadhali sana na kuomba. Kuanzia leo, kuanzia dakika hii, usikanyage tena kwangu.
Tujali kazi zenu
Kijana, nikusikia unasikia ama usikii? Nimesema kina Tracy wanaishi huko karibu na kwenyu. Toka hapa uende, mimi ndio naishi hapa.
So, unaniitia Tracy ama
kijana? Kusikia ndio unasikia ama usikii? Toka hapa uende, mimi ndio naishi hapa.
Unaweza je transfer mtoto wangu shule atunampeleka private school? Kazi unafanya itakuruhusu kulipa hiyo fee?
Hapo kwa fee.
No. Chama amekataa na ball yangu.
Wewe.
Unajua hiyo ball nimepewa.
The next time I'm talking usijaribu kunintrude. Umesikia? Toka hapa.
Tufungulie. Please. Tufungulie.
Welcome back. We continue with the show. And now, Evans, you were explaining to us the kind of impact that this reduction will have on the economy of the of African continent. Of course, I had mentioned that this is going to be from 3.2 to 1.8%. At least that is what the statistics said. But what kind of impact will this have in terms of economic growth?
Yes, from what is happening is that there is no economy that is going to start. Given that there is no business that is taking place, this coronavirus has affected the entire system of the economy, individual economy, sectoral, government, private sectors, and all over. Things are at a standstill. We don't expect the normal at this moment. So what we do as a nation, what we have to do as a SACCO, as banks and other sector, is to be innovative, look at products and service that we can be able to generate at this time so that we can be able to make some little income. Because even the future, tomorrow is not very secure because we may not plan, we may not focus on the business trend after this. We don't know how long it's going to take. Each country is experiencing unique problems. There are countries that are trying to come back like China. They are now settling back. But looking at Africa, this is the time we are receiving the effects of the pandemic. So we expect that after this, we pray that this government initiative is going to roll out and it's going to help the country as a country to come back within the shortest time possible so that we may reduce the effect of the economy. At the end of the day, when you look at the way things are changing, we had no time to prepare.
All right, that is Evans Kibagendi just explaining to us the impact of the economy. But now let me rope in our other guest. This is Geoffrey Injeni, who is an economist as well as also doubles up as a lecturer at Strathmore University. Again, also thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the show this morning. And I just want you to talk to us about the private sector. This is, of course, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA. They said that they will develop a business COVID-19 action platform. So they mentioned that this platform was to have a 24-hour call center and a portal to share business-related information for all sectors. This means for both private sectors, for both public sectors, as well as also all business sizes, small scale and large scale. At least this platform was for people to share business information. But talk to us about the significance of such a platform. How important is it in this time when we're fighting this pandemic, even as economy is concerned?
Okay, thank you very much, Doreen, and engaging. I think one of the issues that comes up, when you have such a pandemic, is that you already know that there are a lot of economic effects hurting businesses and people, issues of jobs, inflation, unemployment. But what happens is that, of course, maybe this is where things like Huduma number and, other school help, but you don't have very, very good, reliable data that can help you to know who is facing what problem and the actual impact of the problem. And in that case, if you have a portal where people can bring their issues, then this gives you a realistic kind of direction. Though it's not very robust, because not everybody will report what's feeling, but it tends to give you what we call a trend, and it brings you closer to reality. Because at the moment what we have is just, we have a lot of speculation. We have a few people here on social media, businesses, and everybody's talking about the actual economic impact. Others, are saying we're jobless.
Yeah.
But what is happening is that you really don't have the accurate figures to know what's happening on the ground. So I think the initiative is very important. As to whether the success will only be measured as how many can be able to log in and be able to give their comments.
All right, so the initiative is important. Now, Evans, just to pick your mind on the same, yes, you're talking to us about the reduction of these percentages and the kind of impact it will have on our economy. But here now, the KEPSA, which is the private sector, saying that at least there's a platform which was to be enacted, and it was a platform that was to have a 24-hour call center and a portal that also where both businesses, in terms of small-scale businesses, large-scale businesses, private sector, could at least share information as far as business is concerned. Talk to us about the significance of this platform from your point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Doreen. I think that will be very important because right now, when we were in this situation, we were no sector that was prepared. If we can be able to get aids from the government and try to get information and get the collection of,
Okay. All right, just Evans explaining to us there, when we get you, at least you'll be able to continue to break it down for us. But now, coming back to you, Geoffrey, there's also been an issue of Kenya's economy, of course, largely relying on agriculture sector. This includes things such as tea, coffee exports, and questions that Kenyans probably were even asking, or even might be asking, is that should this be a time where we need to embark on continuous exportation of such kind of products, at least to help protect our economy as a country, because the agriculture sector, is a big thing for us.
Doreen, I just want to tell you that as much as we are looking at modalities on how we can have our business continue, it's not possible. Because if you look at the entire world, there is no communication, there is no movement. As much as we want...
Okay, Doreen, thanks so much. I think there are two things here. From one perspective, it will be very wise to continue with our agricultural activity because this is the mainstay of our economy. Agriculture contributes to the largest portion to our economy and the GDP. And in that case, you want to continue because you need the
as much as the government is bringing up some initiative. It's a model that we can try, but I just want to be very specific and very open that we are in a problem, and we can only work together.
All right, Evans, when we just get you, when we get back to you, at least you'll continue explaining that for us. But Geoffrey, Geoffrey, talk to us about the agricultural sector, even as you're explaining to us. Is it a time where we should embark on continuous exportation of such products to help save our economy?
Yeah, so like I was saying, on the one hand, you'll want to continue exporting agricultural products. Tea, coffee, those are some of the major cash crops for Kenya. But you also have to realize that most of the international airlines and trade and other activities are nearly crippled. And that will mean that also many other countries are focusing on what they can do, what we call just some sustainability measures to actually be able to absorb a bit of the economic impact. So you find that even imports will not be a priority for quite a number of them unless they're very essential items. So I think we also have cognizance of the fact that even our ability to export such will be impacted. And that is why we're seeing that generally the international trade will, in fact, it's more than nearly half of international trade now is being affected. And this is not just Kenya alone. It's all over the world. But I think for the moment, we might want to focus more on sustaining, maybe going towards, agricultural products to help us for consumption at the moment. Rather than focus a bit on export markets, because unless the entire world is already open to trade, we may have a challenge.
Right, so we should focus more on using this product for our own consumption as opposed to exportation. But let's look at another sector which has also been greatly affected. This, of course, is the tourism sector, the hospitality industry sector. In this time, of course, yes, these are the most affected, industries simply because they heavily rely on movement of people here and there, but these movements have been restricted, either through shutdowns or lockdowns. Does this mean that this is it for this industry? It is all doom and gloom for this kind of industries?
Well, not necessarily, but reality is on the ground already.
Okay.
I think by January, the tourism sector was already getting a hit because a number of countries had already stopped their, international travels.
Yeah.
And even Kenya, by end of by mid-Feb and early March, when we got into our COVID, when we discovered the first COVID carrier, we also embarked on, stopping the international movement. So what will happen is that definitely tourism now has collapsed. And what then we'll have to do is we'll have to say, okay, fine, when you're having any stimulus package, what can you do? These are some of the sectors that you'll have to find or give priority in terms of recovery, and even the employees who work there, and the hotels, you have the parks and everybody else. You will have to give them priority when you're talking about having the stimulus package and the like.
All right, now let's talk about the money that we were expecting from World Bank as well as the IMF. This is a sum of 115 billion Kenyan shillings. Of course, it was expected in different times between the months of March and early May, in different times. But even as this money comes to the country, yes, it's supposed to be injected to the economy. But talk to us about how important it's going to be for our economy and how at least it's going to help us protect ourselves in terms of economy in this time, because as it is, the economy is really dwindling. So how will it, help us?
Yes. So at the moment, if I speak from a very objective point of view, meaning that I'm not privy to how Treasury and the cabinet is planning to use the amount, maybe I could just suggest the possible steps that might be important to be observed. For example, the first thing you'll have to do is to identify, like we've talked about, the key sectors and the serious impact. And in your mainly what can you do to sustain some little economic activities? What economic activities need to be done in order to make sure that we don't have a situation where you're saving people from COVID and then people are dying from poverty.
Exactly.
So it will not make sense. So what you'll have to do then is to say, which sectors will require a bit of support? And for me, I think much of it should go substantially to healthcare, maybe to make sure people are not dying, but then a portion of it should now go to supporting consumption activities, all the way from getting consumption stuff from the farms and other places, and support the entire value chain up to the point where people are able to get food. And for those who cannot afford also, we need to find a way of actually doing what is called maybe some form of, to supplement either incomes or, give so much money in the value chain so that it becomes cheap for people to buy food.
All right, so at least this money should be distributed in different sectors so that we do not protect ourselves in terms of health and people are dying because of, of lack of food or even poverty. But even as we talk about poverty issues, it is a time where a significant number of Kenyans are really losing their jobs, because then also employers can't quite sustain their employees, especially here in urban centers. People cannot just even afford the basic needs such as food, shelter in these tough times. From your point, also just to pick your mind, Geoffrey, what kind of measures do you think the government needs to put in place, at least to help protect such persons in these difficult economic times?
Yeah, very good. So just picking up from what I've said, when you have the World Bank giving you some amounts of money to support or to inject in the economy.
Okay.
The next thing you also have to do, you have to supplement this with your fiscal actions, which you've already seen. The government has already given up some tax incentives, which will definitely go way much in putting more money in the pockets of businesses and people. But at the same time, you also have to remember that the success of these initiatives will only be felt if you have proper implementation plans on the ground. So what you're talking about right now is COVID has taken us many centuries back, where one, you are now worried about just staying alive. Now, once you're alive, you're worried about eating.
Yeah.
Now, if you're able to eat, then you're now worried about where you're going to, sleep. So I think, given that kind of priority, then it will also be important to just make sure that for the purpose of food, like I've said, our value chain all the way to getting foods in stores, supermarkets and shops, that should be a priority. But also the initiative about talking to many landlords. If you have landlords, and there are societies and others where you have an appeal that, okay, for the moment, definitely we are not able to pay rent. And even if I pay you rent as a landlord, you can get the money, yes. You might be able to pay the loan with the banks, but even the banks themselves now, they have holiday incentives. You don't have to pay a loan for now, because those incentives are supposed to supplement all these initiatives here. So I think for me, that kind of initiative is very, very important. And of course, you'll have to engage many other stakeholders. For example, if you have landlords many landlords who will still insist on paying their rent, or they want the rent paid, then you'll have to understand, so what's the rationale for that? Is it that we have loans that we can pay, then the banks are already stepping in? At the same time, if some landlords can actually defer and convert their rent into maybe loans, then that can even be better, so that now we can see how people can recover. But the most critical of this is to make sure that putting in proper security, especially for housing. And if you can also have many of the schools and other places where you have people being housed or isolated, some schools can also be used to host some of those people who are homeless. And now some of the wages and other funding that comes in, you can have some of these people taken care of. But definitely, it's not that easy. But maybe some of these initiatives can help.
All right, so Geoffrey, even as you talk about these measures, there's also one which was has been said. This is in terms of supporting the vulnerable, where the vulnerable families by giving them e-wallets or, if you may, vouchers, which they can use to buy food from their local supplier. So instead of the government giving out food to some of these vulnerable persons, they're opting to give vouchers to them so that they can buy food from these local suppliers. Do you think that this is going to be sustainable? And probably if it's going to be sustainable, for how long?
Okay, vouchers have been used worldwide, I think, to support the needy.
Okay.
So the only catch is that sometimes when you talk about a voucher, then who is issuing out the vouchers, and can that scheme be successful? Because you have the government issuing vouchers, but the vouchers don't even get to the needy people. The vouchers are diverted. And even if that's the case, you may have the needy having the vouchers and getting access to the food. But again, there's a lot of, like I said, there's insecurity, food insecurity, which in this context means that you still have people fighting for food. And
exactly.
So again, that will require some, for you to implement some of these initiatives, you need to have a proper system in place. And this is where you may have, quite a lot of, employers and businesses and others taking up the initiatives. So, for example, if you have companies that are struggling and you have the casual workers, for example, you may be able to initiate such schemes through that. But again, the success of that will depend on the goodwill of quite a number of people.
All right, Geoffrey, even as you're talking about that, this to work actually needs measures to be put in place. There's also been an issue which I was actually even discussing with my colleague a bit earlier, and this is in regards to the 40 billion that is to be set aside to protect the most vulnerable person, where the president had mentioned last week that 40 billion shillings will be set aside to assist the vulnerable persons. I mean, coming to you, Evan, what kind of measures do you think the government needs to put in place to identify these most vulnerable persons and to ensure that they will actually get this money? Evan? Okay, so just the same question now coming to you, Geoffrey. Which kind of measures, because earlier on you're talking about the measures at least for these vouchers, but now talking about this 40 billion set aside to assist the most vulnerable persons in terms of identifying them, because as it is, everyone is now almost becoming a vulnerable person. People are losing jobs, people don't have salaries. So which kind of measures do you think the government needs to put in place to ensure they identify who are the most vulnerable persons, and also to ensure that this money will actually get to them?
Yeah, so again, it's a tough situation.
Okay.
And you probably will require just a combination of tools and strategies. For example, I believe that the government already has the draft data from Huduma. Maybe that's the first strategy to put in place. And I remember for Huduma, people are mentioning, or people are able to list their source of income and probably give an average of the kind of income they get. So maybe that could be the first thing you have to do. You have to do some data mining from Huduma to see what can you extract from that. Now, the next level is, remember that the country already is structured into counties. And maybe apart from Nairobi, where you might require high-level kind of mapping,
okay.
For the rest of the counties, you'll have to now work with the county governments the county governments and other officers on the ground, the members of parliament, the guys who operate the CDFs, to be able to know exactly who are the people who are on the ground that require help. And of course, this now requires you to go straight away down to the lowest, like the chief and other, elders around.
Okay,
and for me, if you try to use a strategy, then that can help.
Maybe
all right, Geoffrey, I'll just get back to you on the same on the same, just continue explaining to us. But Evan, just on the same issue in terms of ensuring the government identify these most vulnerable persons, what kind of measures can they adopt to identify them and distribute this money to them?
Okay, my take, as in addition to what Geoffrey has said, Doreen, I think the first thing is that we have the statistics from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, which can be used also in addition to other models like the chiefs, the Nyumba Kumi, and the others, so that at least we have a system. I like the way the government has come up with a fund committee that is managing all the funds that is given. And with that, I believe if you go to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we have data that can be able to be used by the government so that we can really identify the people who deserve this. That is the only way we can ensure that these funds are used effectively. And at the same time, this is a time we must have to work with a lot of integrity. So whatever the system, whatever the plan the government is giving, first of all, we must be able to understand that this is a situation, as a moment that we cannot be able to give a gap in terms of corruption again. So this money, I'm sure, with the situation that we have, using the administrator on the ground, using the Kenya National Statistics, using all the statistical elements in this country, we are able to identify the population that needs support. And that is the way we can go in trying to distribute and helping the vulnerable families in this country.
All right. Evan, let me also pick your mind on this issue of vouchers, because the government's suggestion is that as opposed to giving this food to vulnerable persons, because as it is, the economy is hard for them even to just put basic needs such as food on the table, they are proposing the issuing of these vouchers or the e-wallets. Do you think this is going to be sustainable, and for how long?
This will be good because if you look at food issue, it's not easy to identify. Maybe if you have seen even a few incidents where there's distribution of food to vulnerable families, you find that the few strong people are the people who are able to get it, and that's where we find corruption. But if we really identify the vulnerable people in our society, and we identify and give them these vouchers, it will be reaching to those people because the vouchers will be used effectively, and we'll be using the mechanism of Nyumba Kumi, chiefs, and others. That will be effective because at the end of the day, we'll have reached all those families that are needed. And since we have a record, it will be very easy for us to identify these people. Villagers, chiefs, they know what is happening. And I think, to me, we can use that model to avoid this rush and corruption. Because when you look at food, you don't know how it's transported, who is taking control. So I really concur, we can use that model to see how we can reach, and there will be any change as we move forward. It can be modeled by the government. But I want to support that as a way of reaching to the vulnerable members of our society, Doreen.
All right, Evan, and even just as Chair Hazina Sacco, I'd now want due to the interest of time, I just briefly want us to talk about this issue of SACCOs, seeing that members of these SACCOs are now withdrawing their savings, especially of those from the sectors of horticulture, hospitality, and aviation industry. I mean, if this trend continues, whereby they are continuously withdrawing their savings, how will this negatively affect SACCOs?
Thank you, Doreen. As you remember, immediately after the government brought up some initiative, Hazina Sacco and my board, we went forward and we decided to come up with products and innovation that is going to continue and help our members. So far, the Sacco movement, I've seen the Minister of State Department of Cooperatives, I've seen the SASRA and the Commission of Cooperative. They have come up with modalities and guidelines to the SACCOs. SACCOs themselves, we have tried to look at it because if you understand, Kenya is ranked #1 in Africa in SACCO movement. This effect of closing the economy has affected SACCOs. Take of funds, repayment of loans, and other services have been stopped because the effect is real. But what we are doing is that we are trying to model, as Geoffrey said, come up with modalities on how do we have continuity. We have given in, if you look at the status of cooperative movement at this moment, is that we are seeing a lot of members who are not able to pay because some of these members of corporate movement were people from small business, people who are able to get their daily income, and also others from parastatal and other government. So these things, coronavirus has really affected the cooperative movement, and even the uptake of loans has gone down all over. The repayment has gone down. So let me say in a nutshell that the SACCO movement has been affected, but as Asina SACCO, I just want to assure our members that we have come up with modalities, innovation, that is going to have continuity in a small way, but to give them service that they desire up to the end of the epidemic.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So that has been Evan Kibagendi, Chair, Hazina SACCO. I have also been speaking to Geoffrey Injeni, an economist who also doubles up as a lecturer at Strathmore University. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the show and at least explaining to us and breaking it down for us the kind of impact this disease has had on the economy, especially here in Kenya, as well as also to the entire African continent. Also just giving us the measures that governments need to take in place to ensure that at least persons that are vulnerable are protected in this difficult time. That has just been Geoffrey talking to us, as well as Evan talking to us on some of these issues. Again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so Ram, just speaking from what our experts have talked to us this morning, and of course, more of what they're saying is that measures need to be put in place. Measures, and measures to help protectors. What do you think about all of this?
I think I love what they have said, especially putting into perspective that at the end of the day, the economy is what is going to trickle down. We will have a ripple effect coming down through the common management down there. All these measures that have been put in place by the government and by the different stakeholders in regards to curbing the effects of COVID-19 and making sure that it doesn't have an adverse effect on the economy. I support it. And I was looking into what some of the choices Kenyans have been making in regards to this, making sure that their businesses do not just fall. Some of the businesses that are being managed by the common management, especially on the ground, have been falling, have been failing, have been coming up, and most business owners have been forced to split their business or to close down their business. Some are even selling their businesses to other people. Well, I was looking at one of the dailies, and especially in the world news, that is talking about that most people have been putting that there's a wrong approach in some of the decisions people make, which entail constant and painful trade-offs coming in from business owners. In one of our dailies, it said conceptually we find it easier to focus on the things we can count. So we talk about stock markets, about businesses going bust, and about unemployment as a cost to the exchequer, and the imperative to lift the lockdown, thus becoming a purely economic one. And on the other hand, according to the daily, it says we talk about numbers infected, the number of ventilators, the number of dead. Yet behind all these numbers, there are people whose physical and mental health are symbiotic. People, to those well-being, the virus is not the only threat. Even as I talk about the recession, as I talk about the history, there are every individual that are should be considered when it comes to talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the economy, on the common mwananchi, especially when it comes to the low-income earners. People who earn even as low as 100 shillings a day, 50 shillings a day, less than $1 per day. So even as I talk about this, Doreen, when you look at the effects of this, I think there's a huge number of people, business owners, who have been forced to close. Doreen, I don't know what you think about that. All right. So even as talk about this, remember that we are still having this conversation. You can be able to join us from home. Everyone who is watching, what do you think about the effects of the COVID-19, especially when it comes to the businesses, the economy, on most of these business owners, the effects of this COVID-19 in the businesses? Just to quote one of the dailies, I was mentioning that earlier, that you have some people who have been forced to, close businesses. Some have been able to make even the wrong choices. Even as we talk about this, we need financial intelligence when it comes to combating the COVID-19. How effective can this be? Even as we talk about the debate on when this lockdown can be eased. Is it possible that the lockdown can be able to be eased for some countries? Is it possible that the lockdown can be able to be reduced in others? Well, different economists have been giving up their predictions when it comes to the COVID-19 and how the global economy will recover. Economists have been coming up with different predictions on that, even as we talk about the economy. And we have more than 50 economists who are polled by one of our dailies, asking their predictions on economic recovery after the COVID-19. And for more than the 50 economists polled by who are polled, some focus that the world economy will shrink as much as 6% in 2020, while others have said that there will be an extreme, and there was a prediction of 0.7% growth, that the average was a 1.2 contraction. So, Jane, when you look at the polls that were given, some were even saying that it is an abrupt stop of economic activity, that from 100 to 0 in just a few days or weeks is something that is alarming.
It's crazy because there was actually also another research that was done by an international organization just giving an estimate of the number of jobs that are going to be lost this year. And globally, it stood at about 25 million of the working population. So at least 25 million people in the world are going to lose their jobs. And you can just imagine how that is going to affect the global economy as a whole. A pretty sad situation. But speaking of the ripple effect that COVID-19 is having on the global economy, another area that has been heavily affected, and just bringing it back here at home, is the education sector. Now, exactly a month ago, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta directed that all schools should be closed, and closed with immediate effects. It started with primary schools, secondary schools, and consequently universities. And since then, almost 18 million students, these are pupils that are from kindergarten through to universities, have been at home for a month now. And we just want to understand how this whole situation is being taken care of, to just make sure that our children do not really miss out or veer off the curriculum as was intended, given that the first term calendar was set to come to an end on the 10th of April. But as a result of COVID-19, it had to be cut short a month before it was due. So to help us with this discussion, we have with us Ruth Mugambi, who is the Deputy Director of Secondary Education and also the Chair of the KICD Internal Committee Curricular Reforms. Karibu sana, Madam Ruth. Thank you for making time.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's just get straight into it to just even help our viewers understand the situation. Now, it's been exactly a month since schools closed. So far, from where you sit, how has this month been in terms of the curriculum? What is the impact on ground from what you have observed?
Well, of course, it has been affected, but as an institute, we have been trying very hard to make sure that at least learners have access to content, access to lessons, access to materials that enable to learn they are in school at home. Although it's a different scenario, we feel that at least we have provided with them with enough information and enough lessons that they can use during this time of the shutdown when they are at home. It has been a long period, and we want them to continue learning and continue doing something to do with education.
Now, given the abruptness of this directive that was given by His Excellency, just to protect our children, how has communication between the Curriculum Development Institute and schools been like, to just ensure a smooth transition of the curriculum from school to home?
Well, we have opened a lot of platforms for the schools to communicate with us, and they have been doing that. We have also had programs, online programs that have been going on radio, on TV, through the internet, through our website. We have tried to continuously communicate. We also have our Facebook page where a lot of people have continuously engaged us. We have also had a lot of calls, and a lot of communication has been going on. So where they have questions, we have actually come up with a lot of even WhatsApp messages that have been going around to schools. We have also communicated a lot in terms of the programs that are there, so that they can connect and connect with us. So as much as possible, we have tried to be in communication with those who are really interested in the process.
All right. Now, we have seen so many institutions go the e-learning way of, just keeping up with the curriculum. But a big challenge of that has been facing most, at least for most parents' side of things, is that they don't have as much access to some of this e-learning equipment. How would you suggest that this be facilitated to just make sure that no students are left behind?
That is true. We are aware that there are millions of children who may not have access to the kind of radio, TV, and talking about. We also are aware that there are millions of children who also have access to the same TV, radios, and the online we are talking about. So we are trying to provide a multifaceted approach where any learner can be able to engage, even on a radio, even on their phone if they have the smartphones. But of course, there are those who have not access to that. And we are hoping that such learners do have their books with them at home, and do have, because the government has provided for the learners the course books that they require for each subject. So we are hoping that they too are able to access them and are going through them during this period.
All right. Now, the fact that we had to go this e-learning way of things, it means parents have more to do when it comes to keeping the children, on track with the curriculum. But, speaking from past experiences, we always see parents falling short, especially when it comes to doing even holiday homeworks. So how then do we even encourage parents to help their children keep up with the curriculum that was part of what they're supposed to learn in school?
Well, I think if one goes back to what this is all about, one of our major principles is parental engagement and empowerment, where we want parents to actually get involved in the learning of their children. This has been seen as one of the things that promotes the learning of the child. Children whose parents are involved in their learning are able to learn better. At this time, the parents have no choice. They are in their homes with their children, and we are not asking them to teach. We are just asking them to facilitate. Remember, in CBC, it's about facilitation of learning. The teachers are facilitators of learning. So we want parents to also facilitate in learning. And it's not necessarily teaching them. So how do they facilitate that learning? They're able to ensure that when the programs are available, they are able to access them, and the learners are actually engaging. Once the learners are asked to do a task may be counting, or a task may be about making something within the home, the parent is just to oversee what the child is doing. And this is very important because it also caters for the safety of that child as they are doing some of these processes.
Yes.
And the learner, So yes, parents should be involved in the learning of their children, but it's not academic to the parents or guardian.
All right. Now, you've just mentioned the CBC, and, we were still in the early phases of rolling out the new curriculum, the CBC curriculum, and then we got into this pandemic. How has this rollout been affected and hampered the process so far?
Well, the process of curriculum development and all the plans we had, yes, indeed, one of the things that has not happened, but we are sure will happen, is that the book evaluation for grade 5, but for grade 4 it was done last year in August, so even in grade 5 it can still be done at the same time. Otherwise, the processes in terms of curriculum development, we are still doing it. We are also doing our work online, and we are going with the process as planned.
So the CBC curriculum, at least for those in kindergarten up until grade 4, is still well on track. From grade 5, that is when there are a bit of challenges? Up
to grade 5, it is. And if you open our website, website today. You will see the grade 5 curriculum designs are complete and on the website,
Okay.
and very soon the grade 6 will also be uploaded. So now in terms of readiness for us.
All right, so far, all students, all primary school pupils are from kindergarten through to grade 5. Their curriculum has been or is already out, so they're not going to be suffering as much in terms of the consequences. But from grade 6, that is where there might be a bit of challenges, but of course, which are being addressed. Now, getting back to you, Ruth, there has been a lot of
clarification.
Sorry?
Maybe a clarification there.
Yes, please.
Yeah, the grade 5 are still doing the 844 and not doing the CBC. So
Yes.
CBC is up to grade 4, but in terms of readiness, up to grade 5, the curriculum is ready. So those in grade 5, 6, and above are still under the 8.
All right. And speaking of these ones that are under the 844 system way of doing things, there's been a lot that has been said from the public and also some unions of teachers' unions saying that, we need to postpone the KCPE and KCSE because of this pandemic, and we don't know how long it's going to be there. From where you sit as part of the curriculum developers, is this postponement going to be, should it be considered in the first place?
Well, I would rather wait and hear what the Cabinet Secretary has to say about that. But the issue of postponement, I don't think, may arise. I don't know. I think it is important for us to wait for an official statement on this.
A very safe answer. Now, let's go back to this pandemic situation. In the event that, we do pray that, we get to a point where, the COVID-19 is contained. We all pray for the best. But in the event that it continues and it completely disrupts the academic year, what plans are being put in place in terms of longevity to ensure that, our students are not thrown completely off the calendar year?
I think for us as an institute, our mandate is to develop the curriculum and to ensure that the curriculum is in place. When it comes to curriculum implementation, that is the mandate of the Ministry of Education. So it's very difficult for me to give an opinion on the same when I am not part of the quality assurance that decides on issues of curriculum implementation. So for us on the side of KICD, the curriculum development process is to ensure that we have the curriculum in place and we have the course books ready, vetted, and available to the learners.
All right. Now, still coming back to curriculum development, we are coming to see that, this e-learning way of doing things might be the future at least the future of education in the looking at the situation we are in. But in terms of also just when we get back to a sense of normalcy, is this e-learning of doing things a solution that is going to be considered for the long haul to keep it going, or it's going to be dropped and just go back to the normal way of doing things?
I think for us as an institute, if you look at one of our core competencies, it's about digital literacy.
Yes.
So we do want learning to continuously take place with or without the situation that we are in. We must remember that our learners really enjoy the digital gadgets. They enjoy learning. These are platforms information that one can get at any time they want. So for me, the online learning is something that will continuously take place and happen. Also, that if you open our website through and enter and go to the Kenya Education Cloud, you can access lessons anytime that is of convenience to you. So indeed, online learning is the way to go, combined with classroom teaching, of course.
Okay. Now, when it comes to, relevant partnerships that could also assist in the rolling out of this new curriculum of doing things, what would you suggest, possible partnerships that could come on board and just help ensure that this way of rolling out the curriculum is effective, not just from your point of view, but also ultimately to the learner?
Programs, online lessons. So actually learners have an opportunity to choose the kind of materials, the kind of book that they want to use. Like if you check, like now we have a lot of books by our publishers that are actually being offered for the learner in terms of what they want. So we are partnering with any private sector that is interested in terms of providing online materials. I must say the publishers have come a long way, are actually providing such programs.
All right, so we will be getting back with Ruth in not too long. Remember, we're talking about, the impact that this COVID-19 pandemic is having on the education sector here in Kenya. There are, both short-term and long-term consequences that we have experienced so far. But for the ultimate good of our children, what more do we need to do to ensure that they are not completely thrown off course in terms of covering the curriculum that was set? We all know, during first term and second term is when most of the curriculum is done, given that third term is usually much shorter. But now that we are in this situation, how can we best make sure that this time is compensated and our children do not get to suffer? Now, coming back to you, Ruth, there's also been speculations about, the fact that most of the curriculum is covered during first term and second term because third term is usually quite short. And there's some parents who are, speculating and a bit afraid that, learners might have to retake the year. When it comes to just settling the parents' minds at ease and some sense of assurity from the curriculum developers, what can you say about this?
I think we are all aware of what is going on.
Yeah.
And our ears are on the ground. And once we know how the situation is going, the institute is actually very abreast of what's happening, and we are planning, and we'll be able to the first term is normally the long term, the third term is short term. What we have done is we developed them for the long haul, for the whole term, for the whole year. So even if the third term is extended, we will ensure that everything is well covered, and I think we shall be given for defending, because we do not know what the future is. But
Yes.
we do know that I think it's important for parents to know that we are actually seated and planning for whatever comes to ensure that the child is not ensuring that every child is not left behind. So yes, indeed, we will plan for whatever comes about. And I think parents should just feel relaxed that there are people behind planning that this curriculum will be well implemented and their children will not be disadvantaged in any way.
All right. And, just looking at the implementation of the e-learning so far, you had mentioned that, so far you have been making good progress given the abruptness that it did come with, but also from the developer's point of things, what are some of those challenges that you have encountered and possible solutions that came as a result to just make sure that moving on, things will be smoother?
Obviously, when you have online programs, and the CBC is a practical curriculum where learners are expected to perform. It's about the skills, development of skills. It's about learners investing things in terms of you have to see the learner doing to ensure that they're actually achieving what you expect. Like if it is a TV program or a radio program, you're telling the learner to do something, but you're not actually seeing that the learner does. And that is where the parent come in to see that the learner is following the instructions as per the program. I think that is one of the challenges we are getting. But the feedback from many parents are showing that they are actually enjoying the program and that it is going well. So for me, that would be a challenge because it's a skill-based curriculum, and the development of that skill may not be apparent from an online course.
All right. Now, when it comes to looking at, long-term solutions that are going to last, because, they say when it comes to disaster and pandemics, we need to always be prepared, and especially now looking at our education, we don't want to be thrown off again. Looking at the future, because it's not a matter of if, but just a question of when. In terms of the solid long-term solutions that are being put in place in regards to the curriculum, what can you say about that to just ensure that in the event that we find ourselves in such a situation, things will continue to move on as usual and we won't have to fall back to reactive contingent solutions?
Well, one of the things we have continuously done at the Institute is continuously training teachers through online as well. And they actually engage through our online course, which is the Elimika program, where teachers log in. And it's a very interactive program where KICD officers are on board throughout. So they are able to ask us questions, ask us what difficulties they are going through, and it's an opportunity for us to also equip them and for us to also know the challenges that are happening within the school program. This is a program that started last year, and it continues up to today, and we're having such challenges. So for us, it will be an opportunity for us to teach us on what and give us this back to challenges that they are overcoming. For us, obviously, this one, we can call it reactive because it was something that was really unexpected.
Yes.
But I think the interventions that have been done so far by the government, even the Ministry of Education has really tried in terms of ensuring that these programs are in place. And so I think this is a lesson that we'll learn from and we'll continuously try to improve on it.
All right. Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, you had mentioned that, there are assistance tools on the website for parents who might be needing assistance. But what other options are there for parents who might not have access to the website or to the internet in the event that they need assistance to help their children just try and keep up with the curriculum or the content that has been put out so far by the ministry?
Obviously, that is a big challenge because if they cannot call us, they don't have a telephone to call us, then it's very difficult for us to know who the parents are and where they are. For me, I would probably advise them to contact through their telephones or through whichever other mode, I don't know. They can use even their schools, their head teachers, and their teachers who will be able to contact us and we'll be able to give that guidance. But our telephones are open and anybody can call us. Our Facebook page is very active and anybody can be there. So for us, it's very difficult to identify exactly where they are. But we do have the Ministry of Education. They do have their offices which are on the ground, which can also be a source of information to any parent who would like to get any assistance in terms of what they can do to support their child during this time in order to cover the curriculum.
All right, and speaking of assistance, maybe at this point you could just take this time to just speak to the county governments and just try to see how they can come on board to just ensure even some of these parents in those marginalized areas are able to get the assistance that they need, given they might not have those communication tools that they need to just be in touch with the curriculum developers, the Ministry of Education, but the county government is there.
Well, for county government, I would really like to encourage them to also support the online programs that are in place, and to also encourage their teachers to do that. Also, a very good step for teachers to enroll on our Elimika program, to also go through the training on CBC, and to also ensure that the teachers are available to parents in terms of in case they need any information in terms of what they can do during this time. So KICD website, you can go to the Kenya Education Cloud. There are a lot of materials that are available. You can go to Edu Channel, that is the KICD TV channel, or the radio programs that are there on English channel. The teachers.
All right. Thank you very much, Ruth Mugambi. We have been looking at matters to do with the curriculum and how, the fact that we are smack in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis, the education sector has definitely been affected. And we had with us Ruth Mugambi, who is the Deputy Director in charge of Secondary Education and also the Chair of a KICD Internal Committee on Curriculum Reforms. As you have heard, parents, we have a role to play during this time. It is vital than ever that we step up and help our children just try to keep up with the curriculum so that, when things go back to normal, when there's some sense of normalcy, they're not completely thrown off and left behind in terms of the curriculum. And we transition back smoothly to the way we used to do things as we embrace the new way of doing things, given we don't want to find ourselves in another reactive situation as we did this time. But remember, we have seen almost every media house just, at the forefront in terms of helping our children stay educated. You can always tune into any of our, through KBC, we always have educative programs and also our sister radio stations to help you keep your child abreast in terms of the curriculum and what they were supposed to cover this far. But remember, it's not about taking school home. It's about helping them keep up. So as a parent, also do not frustrate yourself as you try to keep up with what they were doing in school, because honestly speaking, it will be impossible. Just do the much that you can to help your child, especially with the CBC curriculum, as we have heard from PP1 to grade 4 is already up and running. So if you are a parent in that category, just try and do as much as you can with your child during this time. And also you will also be able to be better positioned to help them move on with matters to do with education. Well, that is that in regards to the effects of COVID-19 on the education sector. But we have more of Good Morning Kenya coming up in a bit, so do stay with us. Remember, the hashtag is still Good Morning Kenya. My handle is the Jane Boy. Our SMS number is 20154, and our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. We take a quick break. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Next on.
Kuniambia uko na mgeni mali zawa hivi. Wewe, nikwambia hapa ndani kama nani? Na maana sio wewe alokufuata huko ndani.
Hata dada, mimi ninafanya kumuona sasa hivi alivyoingia.
Zuena, huyu mtu simtaki hapa kwangu.
Rajabu.
Tutaonana siku nyingine.
Sawa, inshallah.
Wapi pesa? Pesa.
Afadhali sana na kuomba. Kuanzia leo, kuanzia dakika hii, usikanyage tena kwangu.
Tujali kazi zenu.
Hello Tiffany.
Has he taken anything?
Hapana, hakuna kitu bali yako nacho.
Okay, sawa, sawa. Well, Steph over here is already as stubborn as Anjuguna.
He just happened to be very good at becoming rude as well.
How did you get this job? Are you family?
What family? Do you have a problem? Why are you people shouting? This man thinks that he can come from wherever and come and teach me how to do my job. Jill, really?
Oh, hi.
I'm fine.
Do I know you from somewhere?
I'm your brother.
Next on.
Tazama, nataka kupeleka mtoto, unafisalamia mtoto safi. Tunapeleka mkono hivi. Asisalamia mtu kama huyo. Tanipaka hiyo rangi.
Napata mtoto wako hali mbaya, nikachukua mtoto nikapeleka hospitali. Kenyatta aliishi almost 1 year.
It all started with a mild headache. I took some paracetamols. The next day it became severe. I took all the paracetamols you can think of.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Never say never, Mr. Eh? Just pray that you don't fall into temptation.
Hey, Wasi Solomon. That is the third time you said pray today. Are you okay?
Of course I'm okay. Why would the time be?
Guys, nowadays we have so many unfaithful people. So for my money to be safe, I must be one of the officials.
Atinini? Over my body, that can never happen.
What are you guys talking about?
Looks like teacher is worried about his health. He's not sure he will live long enough to witness something extraordinary he'll be doing in the future.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
About the coronavirus or the COVID-19, it is very clear in the minds of everyone outside there, from wherever you are, that the responsibility when it comes to curbing this virus is upon all of us, both from the national government down to the citizens. It is a responsibility of everybody. But while citizens in other countries are heeding government measures or stipulations that have been put in place to the call to embrace the health precautionary measures to curb the COVID-19, it is a different case here in Kenya, where social distancing is not the case. Hand sanitizers are scarce. As we talk about even the face masks, they are not that available for everyone, making people to go for their own self-made or handmade face masks. But as we talk about this, in Kenya still, the Kenyan citizen still has not yet conceptualized the effect of COVID-19, as most people do not keep social distancing. The question this morning, what is the role of the Kenyan citizen or the common mwananchi in combating this COVID-19? Well, to help me in this discussion, joining me in studio, we are joined by Kevin Majau. He is a businessman, an entrepreneur, and a Christian, a mentor, and a CEO. Karibu sana, Bwana Majau.
Thank you so much, Ram.
I'm also joined by Pastor Tumaini. He is a gospel minister, a pastor, a mentor, you name them. Pastor, karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you very much, gentlemen,
so
for
much,
finding
Ram.
time to join me this morning. And remember, we are live on Facebook from wherever you are watching us from. The hashtag, as always, is Good Morning Kenya. Tag me at Ram Maguko, at Jane Wamboi, at Doreen Narange. As you go to YouTube also, we are also live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and our website at www.kbc.co.ke. Keep texting and keep tweeting. Now, let me just say pastors or men of God, because we'll be getting a view from Kevin as he gives us his take on the business side of things. These two individuals have come up with an initiative, One for One. We'll be hearing about that initiative in a bit. But since the first case of COVID-19 was recorded here in Kenya in March 13th, 2020, the government came up with so many stipulations in regards to that. And the ongoing response towards the outbreak brings to itself so many lessons. And I'd like, gentlemen, to quote what the CS Kagwe says. He said this: "We are suffering from cases of indiscipline. Kenyans are exhibiting a very indisciplined behavior, and this is going to cost us." Do you agree? Are Kenyans understanding really the heaviness of the COVID-19? Let me start with you, Majau.
Thank you so much, Ram. Actually, it's a very big concern, and one of the reasons why we came up with this initiative here, One for One, it actually came from a few brethren that is from the church, fronted by the church. And I just came in to give my view from a business perspective. This thing, as the CS has said, it may not forgive us. If we take it normally, it will treat us super normally, or it will not treat us normally. We have seen superpowers falling down. We have seen first world economies, without mentioning names, falling down. We have also seen businessmen, very serious businessmen. There is one billionaire in one country. He lost his entire family. With all the money, what he did was so simple. He went to the top of his building, he jumped, and eventually he passed on, which has really shown us. And without really being philosophical, we are looking at it this way. The government is doing a lot in educating us. When we look at the newspaper today, the newspapers, the main heading is, if you don't have a face mask, this is what will happen. You'll be arrested. The big question, and this is a pain, some of us have been feeding our fellow, even our staff, our fellow Christians, and this is the question. There is someone out there who is jobless. The effect of social distance, and this is the reality. This is a study we did with this organization over the weekend. We took some drive towards the posh estate, the upmarket. There were no cars. There were no people on the streets. And then we went to a few informal settlement slums. And social distance is not even a priority. There is one children's home that we have been feeding. And one day, the owners, the person managing there, they called us and they told us, man, we wish COVID-19, someone could even give them the COVID, but give them the food. Because with the social distance, it is that dire. People are not visiting children's home because they are fearing even to take the COVID. People are not even sending money. People are not taking the food they were taking. There is an orphanage with 40 kids, 38 of them are total orphans with no trace of anyone. They came from post-election violence. Others have come and they have gone. And so we asked ourselves, with fellow Christians, with fellow businessmen, especially even from outside the country, what can we do to save our nation and to save our people?
And even as you look at all these, because you've moved in different regions and different places to see how it is affecting people. Coming to you, Pastor Tumaini.
Yes.
Do you think that this COVID-19 is affecting different people differently, or all people all in the same way?
I will agree with you, starting with our CSM. I think what we are suffering with is ignorance.
Yes.
And for me, ignorance is dangerous. And what I will say is all of us we are affected. When I speak on behalf of churches and pastors,
yes,
what I will say is we have been calling people to partner with us as a pastors, buying our cars, plots, a building, and I think now this is the right time. Let us now partner with the people. They have been partnering with us. Can we now leave our rundas, our Karen, and our big houses and our big cars? And now let us partner with people. Let us now, our priority be people. I know some of us, we have enough food in our houses, but kuna wale hawana anything. Even today, they don't know what they're going to eat, even right now.
You're talking about partnering, and people have been asked to stay at home.
No, you know, there's a lot of way of partnering with people. There are some few organizations where you can partner. When you partner with them, especially an idea like one for one. When you partner with this, such kind of idea and other ideas, already umepartner na watu kwa njia hiyo. So kuna vile uwezi fikia watu, you can't reach people as a person, but kuna zile mechanisms zile ambazo already ziko in a place where you can reach people through this mechanism. So I think it's the right time for when we come out with this idea with Kevin about one for one. I stand with you, you stand with me. So I think that is the base idea and those and other ideas that is outside there. And what we encourage is let us stand with one another. That is the idea. And I think we'll talk much as you ask the questions. I will able to talk much about that.
All right. And as you talk about standing with one another, we have different Kenyans being affected differently. When it comes to the income that people get, we have low-income earners. And specifically, I would like to focus on that point. Because we have, this morning, my colleague Doreen was having a discussion on the economic effect of COVID-19 on the nation, and also giving us the global perspective of how it affects the economy. Now, looking at the common mwananchi down on the ground, we have had calls from the Health CS in recent directives saying that Kenyans are required to wear masks in public, and that at some point there is no clear way as to how Kenyans can be able to, get this mask. But Kenyans have been able to come up with their own ways of acquiring the mask. There is a law. There is a bill, rather, in Parliament being put in place so that at the end of the day, all Kenyans must wear masks everywhere you go. And if at all you don't wear masks, you are paying, you are asked to pay a fine. But the irony comes here. Of course, it is that you cannot, one is that you cannot afford the mask, and two, you cannot afford the fine. How can we as Kenyans help each other in getting the necessary equipment or acquisitions when we talk about masks, when we talk about hand sanitizers, when we talk about water? Because for some, water is not a commodity that is easily accessible, even as we talk about washing our hands every day.
Yes, Kevin.
That's a very good question, Ram. But the answer is so simple and very easy. who is it out there who has the plight of the poor people? The idea of profits, I'm a businessman and I want to be very free. The idea of profits is there is no business without the people. If you remove the people, all businesses will be skeleton. What we have done, like in my company, we have agreed. We have come for a long way with our people and our customers. But right now, some of our customers are jobless. So we have actually stopped everything else that we are doing, and we have committed our own resources. Some of us have gone to a point of committing their own assets. Personally, I've committed my own car. I've committed my own, there is a piece of land I have somewhere. The value of that land is more than 3 million, but I have sold it at a throwaway price, 1.7 million. And I've said 3 million will not help me. This is the logic, and we are appealing to all Kenyans and all businesses. If you remove Kenyans out of it, your business will be a skeleton. If you remove Kenyans out of Nairobi, Nairobi will be a city with nobody.
But then how do you come out of this? Because businesses are failing because of the coronavirus.
That's a very good, simple question, Ram. What we are saying, today every business is thinking how to employ technology to reach people at home. But when the economy fails, technology will fail. What we are saying is, let every business stop and close, except essential services. This is what I mean. The main business of any business today should be the people. If companies, there are companies that have made 60 billion, 20 billion, 10, 5, 100,000. What that means is never be happy that you have 10 million Kenyans in your portfolio as your customers. It is the poor majority that gave you the 20 billion that you reported last year. We are saying, can we go back a bit? The same people that give us this money, can we get a portion of that? Then, can we bring the government on board? And we already have a proposal here that we have put together, a very nice proposal, and it is available even on website. We have already created a website for
You're
that.
proposing that to who?
We are proposing to the government, but most important to the community. And we are taking this on the basis of faith. Faith in this case, every Kenyan goes to a place of worship, either to church, to a mosque, to a temple. And we are saying this, especially Christians, for example, we are remembering the death and the resurrection of Jesus. The whole impact of that is, it is the power of one man. One man died on the cross for the whole world. Remember, one man also came as a result of sin to this world called Adam. So one man is so powerful that they can be used to save a nation or even to destroy. The greatest innovations in the world today, including mobile money transfer that we boost off here in Kenya, M-Pesa, it came from one man. Today we are saying, if you can afford, and we are not collecting money, we want to make this clear. If you can afford to buy a face mask, don't buy two. You don't need them. Life has shown us money is useless. When this economy fails, it's like we are being reset to factory settings. What will happen? We'll have to start rebuilding again. Kenya cannot hold even 1,000 cases of corona, as in the spread will be so severe. The rich, for example, let me use them for example, and forgive me, I love the rich and all that. The rich don't think you are safe. You are staying in very good estates. Personally, where I stay, and there's a message I've been spreading, we have a police post at the entrance. And I told my people, and I've been telling my neighbor, every neighbor I'm seeing, don't think we are safe because we have a police station at the entrance. Every high-end estate, at the bottom of it, there is a slum. What is happening in the high-end estate, people have done shopping for a whole month, and then they have sat there for social distance and stay home. In the slum and the informal settlement there is nothing to eat, to feed on. We did that survey over the weekend. And so what is happening, it is happening already. I saw a clip, someone sent me a clip from one of the countries yesterday. These young men, they did not have a problem. It's just hunger. They stopped 2 vehicles. One, ilikuwa na nyanya. This person alikuwa anaenda soko. Wakamwambia boss, we have no problem. Satisfy our hunger. Ingine ilikuwa na mikate. Wakamwambia boss, we have no problem. Tupe mkate tu alafu uende. Some countries currently, we want you to log into YouTube. We are not giving an example, especially African countries. And this is a time that Africa needs to arise and businesses need to arise.
So, Pastor Tumaini, coming to you. So you feel that, do you feel that if we are to arise, how are we supposed to help one another as citizens of one nation having one problem?
Wow, thank you so much, my brother. I agree with Kevin, but according to about the question, how we are going to arise together, and we are sharing one problem, one challenge, but watu wote tuko na uwezo tofauti. Now, let me say this. The first thing we need to do now is to bring hope to the people. And how to bring hope to the people is using our mouth. If I quote just one verse in the Bible, because I'm a pastor, in Luke chapter 21 and verse 15, the Bible says that Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he tells them that I will give you a mouth. I will give you a mouth and wisdom. I will give you a mouth and wisdom. So this is the time to use our mouth well. I'll be nimekuwa nikiongea na watu wachache and just talking to them, and you see even a powerful Christian anambia ikitu ni mbaya itatumaliza. You know, a powerful Christian, a solid Christian confessing that.
Is it bad to confess that itatumaliza?
Itatumaliza. So
is it bad to confess that?
No, it is now. It is not bad, but it is bad in terms of faith. Because when it comes to faith, we need to believe that we will overcome this with all means through using our faith. Now, let them come to your question. The question, how we are going to arise together. The only way to arise together, stand with me, I stand with you. That is the way. Let us put our hands together now and support one another. If you have 2 bundles in your house, ukona bundles mbili za unga kwa nyumba, and let us say hii corona iishe this week, utazipeleka wapi? So let us share.
People have bought everything from the supermarket.
Yes, everything.
And zimeisha.
Zimeisha. So what you have, this is what we're talking. Share what you have with another person.
But Pastor, even as we bring this discussion to a close, I will, let me come to you still, Pastor Tumaini. Some pastors have been accused of not following government directives, holding meetings, and even some, being caught and being arrested by the police because of not following government directives. If the men of God are the ones who are not following government directives, then how do we talk about faith?
Okay, now I'm not sure about that. Especially, I think what is happening is the pastors have allowed to stream life to their churches, because according to the Bible, the fire must, ile moto ya madhabahu lazima iendelee kuwaka kwenye madhabahu. So I don't think kuna kanisa ambayo washirika wameingia kanisani, but we were just waiting for that directive that pastors can stream live from their church, and already it's allowed.
All right, thank you very much. So how can people find this one-on-one Majao just on social media?
I have a point just to add to what Tumaini is saying. I always give this analogy.
You have 10 seconds, huh?
Yes. If you go to a marketplace and the first person to fight is a madman, does not mean everybody is mad. There are pastors doing a good job. So what we are saying, log into www.c4k.
All right.
We have a whole proposal here, even to the government. Yesterday we sent to State House. Yesterday we have already given. We have already given face masks.
Yeah.
These are very good quality.
All right. Thank you.
We have given to more than 5,000 Kenyans for free. We have partnered with an organization. We are giving 10 million. We are feeding all Kenyans. We are also giving free sanitizers, more than 10 million.
All right.
Just log into www.c4k, that is Christians for Kenya.
Thank you very much. That is Kevin Majau and Pastor Tumaini joining us this morning to give us their viewpoint. The viewpoint ends now, and so does Good Morning Kenya. See you again tomorrow morning for another edition of GMK. My name is Ram Maguko. Keep it KBC. May God bless you, and may God bless the work of your hands.
She's stunning.